Graham Cole stares at his phone in a small conference room overlooking the city skyline. The sun hovers on the horizon, painting the windows in shades of orange and pink, yet his body feels encased in ice. He has just ended a call with his wife, Iris, who declared with unsettling calm that she wants a divorce. There was no preamble, no gentle lead-in, just a simple statement of fact. And now, he's in this foreign city on a business trip, forced to process the news alone. The swirl of office chatter behind the closed door briefly penetrates his thoughts. His colleague, a junior associate named Travis, calls out, "Hey, Graham, did you need those sales projections?" But Graham can't summon any emotion or even the pretense of professionalism at this moment. He takes a deep breath and presses his forehead against the cool glass, hoping that somehow the chill will ground him. Time slows. Bits of conversation from the phone call echo in his mind. "I'm filing for divorce, Graham. The papers will be sent to your hotel. We both know this marriage hasn't worked for a long time." Her tone was disturbingly composed, almost indifferent. For years, Graham has known something was off, yet denial was easier. He told himself that people grow apart and that he was simply providing for his family. But hearing Iris's voice so resolute confirmed that the distance between them wasn't just a phase. It was a chasm that might have been there from the start. He can't help replaying their earliest days together. They'd met at a large trading company where Graham had just joined the international sales team. Iris was the front desk star, confident, vivacious, always surrounded by coworkers who found her radiant. Back then, Graham was just the new guy from a small Midwestern town, dazzled by the city's pace. Iris had noticed his quiet humility. In contrast to the overly flirtatious or arrogant men she usually encountered, Graham's sincerity stood out. They had their first real conversation at the company cafeteria when Iris teased him for always ordering black coffee and skipping lunch. "You'll waste away," she'd joked, handing him half of her sandwich. He'd blushed like a teenager, but her empathy touched him. Over the following months, they chatted at the reception desk, forging a surprising bond despite coming from different worlds. She was bold, unstoppable. He was polite, introspective. Their colleagues teased them mercilessly. "You two are an odd couple," some would say, but Graham found her magnetic. Recalling those times now, alone in the foreign office, Graham wonders if he'd ever really known Iris at all. If so, when had he lost her? He moves from the window to the small table, collecting his scattered documents. A wave of exhaustion weighs him down, part jet lag, part heartbreak. He knows he must project normalcy until he finishes this business trip. Yet the notion of finality to his marriage unsettles him. He steps into the hallway where Travis waits with a concerned expression. "Hey, you all right? You look pale." Graham musters a faint smile. "I'm fine, Travis. Just, personal matters." Travis nods slowly, unsure whether to pry. "If you need a break, I can handle the initial meeting with the clients." "No, I'll be okay," Graham insists. "Let's just get through this day." He follows Travis to a small conference room, immersing himself in talk about trade regulations, shipping routes, and potential expansion into new markets. For a few minutes, he successfully buries his turmoil beneath a facade of expertise. But between the bullet points on currency fluctuation and import tariffs, he glimpses Iris's face in his mind, how she used to greet him with that radiant smile, or how her gaze slowly cooled in the last few years. The meeting ends, and after shaking hands with the client, Graham withdraws to a quiet corner of the office. He can't resist calling Iris back, but she doesn't answer. His only response is an automated voicemail that stings with its flat finality. "You've reached Iris. Leave a message." He clicks off, deciding that leaving a voicemail about saving their marriage would be pathetic. She's clearly made her decision. Instead, he heads to the hotel, a short walk past neon signs and street vendors. The hustle of this city center usually energizes him, but tonight it feels suffocating, every beep of traffic mocking him with normal life continuing while his is unraveling. Settling into the sparse hotel room, he tosses his briefcase onto the bed. He opens the mini-fridge, plucks out a bottled water, and sips mechanically. Memories swirl. They used to talk about having a stable, happy family. They did a vow renewal at a small church on their 5th anniversary. They traveled to a beach resort when their daughter Marina was 10. Where did all that sincerity vanish? He's aware that sometimes love morphs into complacency, but he never expected to lose his wife's affection so thoroughly. Hours pass in a haze until the phone buzzes again. It's not Iris, it's his mother, calling from back home. He hesitates, uncertain if he can handle explaining the crisis, but answers anyway. She tells him she's worried, says Iris left a strange message about moving forward. Graham chokes back the urge to spill everything, instead murmuring that things are complicated but that he'll figure it out. His mother's gentle voice tries to comfort him from half a world away. By the time the call ends, the sky outside has gone from dusk to full night. In the darkness of the hotel room, Graham sits on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. His mind flickers back to the beginning. To that moment, he realized Iris was so different from everyone else he'd known, and wonders if perhaps that difference was the problem. He'd put her on a pedestal, believed she was perfect. Maybe she needed something else, something he could never be. He tosses and turns, not truly sleeping. Tomorrow, he has to finalize a major business negotiation. The irony strikes him. He can manage international trade deals with unwavering composure, yet he seems powerless in his own marriage. As dawn approaches, he stands by the window, watching the first rays of sun creep over the skyline. Eventually, he resigns himself to the inevitability. Iris wants a divorce. She's sure enough to file the papers immediately. That knowledge seeps into him like a slow poison, forging a bitter resolve in his chest. In that silent morning hush, he forces himself to remember their early days once more. The smiles, the camaraderie, the feeling of belonging. A single question resonates in his mind. Was it all a lie? He won't find answers tonight. The only certainty is that their relationship has cracked beyond repair. Strange that he should learn of it with such finality over a phone call, thousands of miles from home. The distance has long been more than just geographical. Yet amid the confusion, his love for Iris lingers a stubborn spark that refuses to vanish instantly. Slowly, Graham sits down at the small desk, clicks on his laptop, and tries to finalize the next day's presentation. But beneath the spreadsheet and slides, the conversation from hours ago echoes relentlessly. He types a few lines, glances at pictures of his daughter in the digital photo folder, then closes it before the ache becomes unbearable. He's not sure how to move forward, but one thing is clear. The life he knew is changing. Tension and suspicion have overshadowed their once blissful beginning. The seeds of trust that marked their early days are now suffocating under secrets. Tomorrow, Graham will return to the grind of negotiations. Soon enough, he'll board a plane back to the United States and back to the cold reality that Iris no longer wants to be part of his life. The swirl of city life greets Graham as he steps off a bus outside their old trading company. He's remembering a time years ago, his mind conjuring the building's large glass doors and the hum of employees hustling in and out. In this flashback, he's fresh-faced and determined, just a few weeks into the job. On that day, he wore a cheap suit that never fit quite right, and he carried an overstuffed briefcase of training manuals. Anxiety knotted his stomach. With a polite nod to the security guard, he stepped into the lobby, gleaming marble floors, modern lighting, and the distant rumble of phones ringing. Then he saw Iris Carter, as she was known back then, behind the reception desk. Her reputation preceded her. Men in the office joked that half the staff pretended to need front desk assistance just to chat with her. But Iris turned heads not only because of her looks. She had a confidence that attracted people to her orbit. Graham, unassuming and new, felt like he barely existed in her world. Yet that day, she was the first person who smiled at him. It was a simple greeting. "Hi there, let me guess. You're the new international sales recruit?" She teased him about how green he looked, but her tone was friendly. Later that week, she found him fumbling with a broken coffee machine in the break room. Without skipping a beat, Iris pressed a hidden switch beneath the countertop, turning it back on. "You have to know the machine's quirks," she'd said. The conversation that followed was short, just office small talk, but it gave Graham a sense of being noticed amid a corporate sea of faces. Over the next few months, they bumped into each other sporadically. Sometimes she'd call out to him from across the lobby, "Graham, hold on, you forgot your ID badge," or pass along messages from the department heads. He was so focused on his training, but each of these little interactions felt like color in an otherwise gray routine. Then came the day Iris resigned. It seemed abrupt to many, but rumors swirled. She found a bigger opportunity. She's dating someone high up. She's out to start her own thing. Only Graham heard the truth when they happened to ride the elevator together. She confessed, "I'm stepping away because I need a new chapter. This place is fine, but I want more." There was a tremor in her voice, something akin to frustration or ambition. He admired her honesty, but feared he'd never see her again. Life has a funny way of defying expectations. Shortly after, she reconnected with him, though not in the building. One evening, as Graham was rushing through the busy city streets on his way to a supply warehouse, he spotted Iris strolling out of a bookstore. She waved him over, teased him for nearly knocking over a display in his hurry. They decided to grab a quick coffee. That quick coffee morphed into a 2-hour conversation about everything from family background to personal dreams. Iris talked about wanting stability. She wanted a life partner who wasn't full of empty promises. Graham opened up about his modest roots, how he'd always craved acceptance, how he needed a place to prove himself. They seemed to fill each other's emotional gaps, or at least that's how Graham felt. In the months that followed, they dated. The thrill of the new romance overcame any reservations. She found his seriousness refreshing. He found her zest for life inspiring. They had inside jokes and shared little traditions, like meeting at a local diner for breakfast on Saturdays. Though Graham's co-workers teased him for winning the office queen, he was too content to care. Then Iris dropped the news. She was pregnant. It was sudden. Graham remembered the day vividly, she told him, in her tiny one-bedroom apartment. She looked anxious, yet also had a glint of hope in her eyes. "I didn't plan this," she whispered, "but I'm ready to see where it goes. Are you?" He had no hesitation. Yes, absolutely. In that moment, he pictured a future brimming with possibility: marriage, a stable home, a child to love. For someone who had always yearned to be needed, the prospect of being a father felt like destiny. The wedding was small. They opted for a courthouse ceremony to avoid the stress of a big event. Afterward, a few close friends joined them at a casual restaurant for celebratory drinks. There was laughter, toasts to new beginnings, and unrestrained talk of baby names. Iris's relatives were mostly out of state. She'd grown distant from them after her parents passed away. Graham's own parents flew in from his old hometown, each sporting proud smiles. They adored Iris on sight, her warmth, her big ideas, the way she made Graham's reserved nature blossom. Shortly after the wedding, Iris gave notice at her job, a new administrative position she'd taken elsewhere. She explained that she wanted to focus on the pregnancy, maybe rest before the baby arrived. "We'll need your income more than ever," she told Graham half-jokingly. He accepted that new responsibility without complaint. He believed wholeheartedly in being the provider, and deep down, he enjoyed the sense of purpose it gave him. As Iris's belly grew, Graham found himself in that classic soon-to-be-dad mindset. He read parenting books, reorganized their small apartment to create a makeshift nursery, and joked with Iris about baby furniture. They attended an ultrasound appointment together, where they got the first glimpse of their child's beating heart. The awe he felt in that moment was indescribable. He pressed a hand gently to Iris's abdomen later that night, marveling at the reality of it all. Yet subtle fissures began to appear. During the pregnancy, Iris would occasionally make side comments. "You know, you're always so busy with work. Are you sure you'll have time for a family?" Or, "I hope I'm not going to be raising this baby all by myself." Though she spoke with a slight laugh, Graham sensed a seriousness beneath her words. He chalked it up to hormonal stress, telling himself, "She's overwhelmed. It's normal." He pledged silently to do better, be present, earn more so she would never worry. When their daughter Marina arrived, Graham was overjoyed. Holding that tiny infant in his arms, he felt protective and proud. But the first few weeks were grueling. Marina cried constantly at night, and Iris seemed restless, complaining that her body ached and that Graham needed to pick up the slack. He did. He shopped for groceries, cooked basic meals, and tried to soothe Marina whenever Iris needed rest. In those bleary-eyed nights, he sometimes caught Iris gazing at him with an unreadable expression. He told himself it was exhaustion or postpartum blues. Still, the moment they brought Marina home was blissful in its own chaotic way. They had a new chapter, a small family, a sense that everything was worth it. Tucked away in that cramped apartment, they celebrated small milestones. The first time Marina slept more than 4 hours straight, the first baby smile at her father, the first day Iris managed to leave the house for a brief walk. Friends who visited commented on how devoted Graham was, how lucky Iris must be. And so their relationship seemed stable enough. But even then, the seeds of dissatisfaction were sprouting. Iris would speak under her breath about wanting a bigger place or feeling cooped up. She'd sigh that Graham worked too many hours. "I need you here," she insisted. "But we also need the money," was Graham's gentle reminder. She rarely listened to that part. On the surface, it was a cozy picture, a young couple adjusting to parenthood. Beneath, tension simmered. Graham was determined to give Iris the world, but her responses ranged from lukewarm to critical. Friends chalked it up to new parent stress. Graham believed them. He wanted to believe it was just a phase. That belief carried him through the next few months, motivating him to excel at work, secure modest pay raises, and plan for a future house. If someone had told him then that he'd eventually face a phone call from Iris demanding a divorce, he would have laughed it off as impossible. After all, he was living the dream. Married to the outgoing woman who once graced the front desk, father to a beautiful baby girl. But now, in this recollection, each cheerful detail seems tainted by a looming shadow. The early days of wonder still exist in his mind, but so do the cracks in their foundation. It's as if the idealized start was built on hopes that neither of them fully understood. And as Graham reflects on it all, he can't pinpoint the exact moment it changed. Perhaps that moment never existed as a single point. Maybe it was a slow unraveling that began before he even said, "I do." After the blur of Marina's infancy, Graham and Iris moved into a 2-bedroom rental closer to Graham's company offices. It was a modest place with thin walls, but it felt like a real step up from their cramped apartment. Iris's relief was palpable. She finally had a small bit of space to call her own. She arranged the living area with stylish throw pillows and a bright floral rug. The nursery boasted a hand-me-down crib, a pastel mobile spinning overhead. In that mild sense of upgrade, Graham saw optimism for their future. Within a few months, the daily rhythm settled in. Graham woke at 6 a.m., left by 7 to beat traffic, and dove headfirst into the demands of international sales calls. Meanwhile, Iris stayed home with Marina, though occasionally she'd meet with neighborhood friends or relatives. By the time Graham returned in the evening, often exhausted from dealing with foreign clients and time zone chaos, Iris seemed keyed up like she had 1,000 complaints she needed to unload. The faucet had a leak, the baby had been fussy, the neighbor's dog wouldn't stop barking. Graham listened patiently. He could sense her frustration, always reminded of the expectation that he'd fix everything. On weekends, he tried to help out more: laundry, grocery shopping, babysitting so Iris could get a manicure or meet friends for coffee. Yet no matter how diligently he attempted to shoulder extra duties, Iris often regarded him with discontent. "You put the dishes away in the wrong cabinet," she'd say. Or, "That brand of diapers doesn't fit right." He apologized each time, telling himself that he needed to get it right next round. But each small scolding left a pinprick of resentment in his chest. Marina was too young to notice tension at first. As a toddler, she was bright-eyed and easily amused by colorful toys. Graham adored her laughter. The best part of his day was returning from work to hear her squeal, "Dada," as she toddled unsteadily across the living room. He'd scoop her up, spin around, watch her giggle. For a moment, all the day's stress evaporated. But Iris didn't appear moved by these father-daughter moments. She sometimes used them to slip away and watch TV in the bedroom or spend extra time on her phone. Graham rarely asked for anything beyond that fleeting exchange of parental joy with Marina. He believed that over time, once Marina was older, Iris's constant complaining would ease. Then came the first seeds of what Graham later recognized as bitterness. As Marina inched into her early school years, Iris started dropping remarks about feeling trapped. She'd mentioned how some old co-workers from her front desk days had advanced their careers, traveled for conferences, or built exciting lives. She'd scroll through social media in the evenings, showing Graham pictures. See how she's in Italy? They're staying at a 5-star resort. Graham would glance at the photos and carefully say, "We can save up for a vacation if you like." But Iris's eyes would flick away. "That'll take years at this rate." Graham understood that her life revolved around domestic duties, especially after she didn't return to full-time work once Marina was older. He'd offered to support her if she wanted to find a job, but she dismissed it, saying, "I can't just uproot my routine now." So he accepted the family's dynamic. He was the breadwinner, Iris stayed home, and presumably it was what she wanted. But every new complaint hinted otherwise. As Marina approached her teenage years, her relationship with Graham subtly shifted. Gone were the days when she'd run to him at the door, arms wide. She grew more reserved, occasionally sullen. Iris seemed to relish pointing out, "She's becoming a typical teenager." But Graham couldn't shake the feeling that Iris encouraged Marina's sense of entitlement. They often joked about how Dad can pay for that, or make Dad do it. Graham would laugh it off, but each remark left him feeling more like a wallet than a father. One afternoon, Graham found Marina flipping through a glossy magazine, sighing dramatically. "We never do anything cool," she announced. Iris, scrolling through her phone, murmured in agreement. Graham asked, "What do you mean by cool?" Marina shrugged. "I don't know. Like a real vacation. Some friends at school go skiing or to beaches. We just stay home." Graham forced a smile. "I promise we'll try to schedule something over the holidays." But it never materialized. Work was busy, finances were tight, and time slipped away. He rationalized that an expensive trip wasn't feasible yet. Over time, the friction built. Graham poured himself into his job, climbing the ranks to secure a stable life. He managed to land a promotion that put him in a better pay bracket, but it required more travel. That meant longer stints away from home. Often on these trips, he'd call Iris and find her voice distant, as if she barely wanted to talk. Sometimes the conversation was just an update on bills or reminders about car maintenance. Marina rarely joined these calls, maybe a quick, "Hi, Dad," before scuttling off. Eventually, hints of rebellion surfaced in Marina's attitude. She rolled her eyes at Graham's attempts to engage her. He tried attending her school events or asked about her hobbies, but she'd brush him off. Meanwhile, Iris shrugged, claiming it was normal teenage behavior. "Don't be so dramatic," she told Graham. "You're away a lot anyway. She's just used to you not being around." That stung. He was sacrificing his time for the family's financial well-being, yet it felt like the more he gave, the more distant they became. Conversations at home often turned into stilted, passive-aggressive exchanges. If Graham tried to ask about Iris's day, she'd respond, "Nothing special. Took care of the house, paid some bills." He'd sense an undercurrent of hostility. If he pressed, she might lash out, "If you were here more, you'd know what goes on." Soon, Graham stopped asking so many questions, not wanting to spark conflict. A few new faces flickered in their circle. Neighbors like Donna Nguyen, a friendly single mother, offered to chat with Iris or help watch Marina. Graham appreciated the gesture, but Iris seldom socialized with Donna. Another acquaintance, Bradley, the father of one of Marina's classmates, would occasionally give her rides home. Graham assumed it was just carpool convenience, though he sometimes caught an odd vibe from Iris when she mentioned Bradley. "He's just so funny," she'd say with a small smirk. Graham tried not to read too much into it, but it pricked his mind. One night, after a long trip to Chicago for a product expo, Graham returned home to an oddly cold reception. The living room lights were off. He found Iris in the bedroom, scrolling on her phone, ignoring the fact he'd just dragged his suitcase inside. "Hey," he said softly, sinking onto the mattress. "I'm back." Without lifting her gaze, she answered, "You're back." A biting silence settled. He scanned her face for any sign of relief, love, or even mild affection. Instead, he saw only disinterest. He asked how Marina was doing. Iris shrugged. "She's out with friends. Should be home by 9. Then she turned back to her phone. "Everything okay?" he ventured. Iris let out a short laugh. "Sure. Same old, same old." That conversation ended before it began. leaving him with a hollow ache in his chest. Later, in the kitchen, he discovered a stack of unpaid bills. He realized that while he was handling major accounts for the company, his own household finances were slipping. He tried to approach Iris about it, but she brushed him aside, saying she was too tired. It was yet another wedge, not just emotional distance, but also disorganization and blame that overshadowed their daily life. Despite these flashes of conflict, Graham still clung to the memory of her radiance, her unstoppable spirit. He believed, or wanted to believe, that her negativity would pass once they overcame some financial strain. Maybe after the next promotion, they could buy a bigger home in a nicer neighborhood. He thought that money or success might fix the intangible rifts forming between them. In quieter moments, though, he sensed an undercurrent of resentment from Iris. She made occasional snide remarks about corporate guys who'd do anything for a buck. At times, she criticized his job, complaining about how it turned him into an absent father. Meanwhile, Marina's rebellious side grew bolder. She'd come home late, dismiss Graham's attempts at discipline, and murmur about how her mom understands her better. Those days were marked by a subtle erosion of warmth. A routine had formed, but it was a routine laced with tension. If any friend asked Graham how things were, he'd just say, "Fine, we're busy." Because how do you explain that your wife seems perpetually dissatisfied and your daughter sees you as nothing more than a human ATM? Late one evening, as Graham lay awake listening to Marina's muffled music seeping through her bedroom wall, he realized that what once felt like a stepping stone, this suburban, middle-class existence, had become a stagnant swamp of frustration. He tried to rationalize, to build a mental timeline of how they got here, but it all blurred. Perhaps it was the cumulative toll of stressful days and unspoken complaints. Still, he reassured himself, every family goes through rough patches, right? He'd handle it, provide more, love them better. That was the story he told himself as he drifted into uneasy sleep. But the seeds of Iris's disappointment and Marina's rebellion were sprouting into deeper discontent. And he, ever the dutiful husband and father, couldn't shake the fear that he was losing them, one day at a time. Graham wakes up early, just before dawn. He hasn't slept well, the echo of a tense conversation with Iris replaying in his head. Over the years, their relationship has evolved into something transactional. She demands, he provides. He once believed that marriage was a constant negotiation of emotional support, but lately it feels more like a balance sheet with intangible debts. He stretches, feeling the stiffness in his back and shoulders, an accumulation of stress from late-night calls with international clients, never-ending spreadsheets, and the intangible weight at home. The last real talk he recalls having with Iris happened months ago, and it was more argument than dialogue. He wonders when he became so withdrawn, so resigned. Even this morning, he's hesitant to wander into the kitchen for coffee, uncertain if he'll face an icy stare or a barrage of criticisms. By 7 a.m., Graham slides into the kitchen anyway, flipping on the weak overhead light. Iris sits at the table, scrolling on her phone. She doesn't look up. He clears his throat. Morning. She mutters something that might be a greeting. The silence that follows throbs with tension. He wants to ask how she slept, but he's almost certain the question will bounce off her. Finally, she sets the phone down and says, "Don't forget to leave money for Marina's new books. She says she needs them for school." Her voice is cold. "Sure," he replies. "I'll leave some cash on the counter." She picks up her phone again. Conversation over. Marina ambles into the kitchen soon after, hair messy, eyes half open. She mumbles, "Hey, Dad," but hurries past him toward the cereal cabinet. Any attempt at fatherly connection dissolves in her single-minded morning routine. She's a teenager now, immersed in her own world. If Graham tries to ask about classes or after-school clubs, she shrugs or offers one-word answers. He hopes it's typical teenage moodiness, and not a permanent disconnection. He leaves for work with a familiar knot in his gut. Outside, the sky transitions to early daylight. He fights the feeling of gloom by telling himself that he's just in a slump, that all families deal with friction. In the back of his mind, though, he recalls overhearing a conversation between Iris and Marina the previous weekend. They joked about how boring he was, how his life revolved around spreadsheets and phone calls. They'd giggled as if it were the funniest joke in the world. The memory stings even now. He wonders if they see him as a real person or just a fixture that pays bills. During the office commute, the talk radio station buzzes about local politics, but Graham barely registers it. His mind strays back to the early days with Iris, her boundless energy, that warm smile, a sense of partnership he once felt. Where did it go wrong? Did fatherhood and career ambitions transform him into a dull, predictable man? Did the daily grind smother Iris's vibrant spirit? At work, he submerges himself in tasks, spreadsheets, conference calls, marketing plans. The office hallways bustle with colleagues who barely suspect the chaos in his personal life. To them, Graham is a reliable cornerstone, always prepared, never rattled, the guy who can handle tough negotiations. No one sees the hollowness behind his polite smile. Only his friend Dana, an HR manager, senses something is off. She catches him in the break room, offering a sideways glance. "You look tired, Graham. Everything okay?" He hesitates, then nods vaguely. "Yeah, just family stuff." She rubs his shoulder briefly. "Don't let them work you to death here. Take care of yourself." He musters a thanks, feeling both gratitude and embarrassment. Evening arrives, and Graham heads home to find a sticky note on the fridge. Marina at friend's house. Iris out for a while. The emptiness of the house strikes him, echoing the emptiness that's been growing between him and Iris for years. He reheats leftovers, flipping on the TV for background noise. Occasionally, he wonders where exactly Iris has gone, possibly out with a friend he hasn't met, or maybe shopping for something she never bothered to mention. Around 9, he hears footsteps. Marina breezes in, carrying a backpack. She glances at him on the couch and, without a word, disappears into her bedroom. Graham calls out, "Did you eat?" She replies through the closed door, "Yeah, I'm good." The conversation ends before it starts, leaving him wishing for a flicker of closeness. Half an hour later, the front door opens again. Iris steps in, wearing a faintly annoyed expression. She sets her purse on the counter and scrolls her phone. Graham steels himself and tries conversation. "Where were you?" he asks softly, attempting to keep any accusatory tone at bay. "Out," she says, eyes on the phone. When he lingers, she adds, "Just needed some fresh air." He fights the urge to press. Their interactions have grown so tenuous that any prying might start a fight. Instead, he stands up. "I'll head to bed soon. Early meeting tomorrow." She glances up with mild surprise, as if expecting an argument. "Fine," she says, turning away. He sighs and heads to the bedroom alone. A reminiscent memory surfaces as he changes into pajamas. How during the early years they'd watch late-night TV together, or read in bed while discussing future goals. Now they rarely speak more than a few clipped sentences. Despite living under the same roof, they inhabit separate worlds. In bed, he can't shake the feeling of insignificance, the suspicion that maybe Iris has found new interests or new people to fill the void she once turned to him for. Days turn into weeks, and the disconnection seeps further. Iris and Marina sometimes talk animatedly about shopping or pop culture, leaving Graham on the periphery. If he injects himself into the conversation, the mood sours, as though he's an unwelcome intruder in their private circle. He can't recall the last time any of them laughed together. At work, a big project looms on the horizon. Graham's boss, Mr. Kinsley, mentions a potential overseas trip for negotiations. "You're the best man for the job, Cole," he says with a clap on Graham's shoulder. Ordinarily, such recognition would thrill him, but now it elicits mixed feelings. Traveling abroad could bring a welcome break from the tense home environment, but it also means more distance, fueling Iris's claim that he abandons them. Eventually, the official request comes in, a 2-week trip to finalize an important deal. The day before his flight, Graham tries to inform Iris, "I leave tomorrow. It's crucial for the company." She barely glances up from her phone. "Sure, whatever. Just keep your phone on. Marina might need you." Her words carry a sarcastic edge, as though she finds the notion that he'd be available laughable. He decides not to argue. Instead, he focuses on packing, arranging bills, leaving enough emergency cash at home. That evening, he stands in the hallway with his suitcase, double-checking flight details. From the living room, he hears Iris's low murmur to Marina, "He's off again. Typical." They both laugh softly. Something about the easy way they ridicule him sets his jaw tight. He contemplates confronting them but doubts it'd lead anywhere. The habit of disrespect has grown too strong. When morning arrives, Graham slips out of the house before dawn. No one sees him off or wishes him luck. The drive to the airport is peaceful in a melancholy way. At least the tension is behind him for a while. On the plane, he closes his eyes, trying to catch some sleep. But thoughts swirl, conjuring images of Iris's detached expression, Marina's dismissive shrugs, the phone calls cut short. He wonders if this is the permanent state of things, if he's forever relegated to the role of that guy who pays for everything and gets no love in return. Just as the engines roar, lifting the plane into the early sky, he feels a pang of both sadness and relief. He's escaping the house that no longer feels like home. In the back of his mind, something churns, a suspicion that grows louder each time he overhears them mocking him. He wonders if there's more going on than typical teenage attitude or a restless spouse. Yet he dismisses it as a product of his own anxiety. For now, Graham focuses on the job at hand. Finalize the overseas deal, keep the paycheck flowing, and keep the fragile equilibrium at home afloat. But inside, he senses a fracture. The seeds of trust once sown between him and Iris have withered, and as the plane cuts through the morning sky, Graham can't help feeling that a deeper betrayal might be lurking in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. Graham Cole scrolls through his phone while sitting alone at a polished wood table in the dimly lit lounge of Brookview Restaurant. He's awaiting a client for a dinner meeting that could finalize a lucrative international distribution deal. Despite the clink of glasses and gentle hum of conversation around him, he feels oddly restless. The overhead lights cast warm halos on the plush seats, but no comfort reaches Graham's mind tonight. He can't shake a heavy sense of unease, as if he's standing on the brink of something irrevocable. He checks his watch, 6:52 p.m. The client is running late. In an attempt to calm his thoughts, he catches the waiter's attention. "I'll just have a club soda for now, thanks." The waiter, a young man named Lewis, nods politely and disappears among the tables. Leaning back, Graham lets out a slow breath. He's been traveling again, juggling a whirlwind of presentations and negotiations. Life at home with Iris and Marina has deteriorated so much that sometimes, ironically, these business trips feel like a refuge. As he studies the menu, an eerie feeling prickles the back of his neck. He hears the distinct sound of a woman's laugh from across the restaurant, a laugh he recognizes all too well. He looks up and sees Iris. For a split second, he questions his own eyes. Why is she here? Then the question morphs as he notices Edmund Turner next to her. Edmund is a familiar figure from the old trading company, once a high-ranking executive who retired a couple of years ago. Graham has never been particularly close to Edmund, but he's shared a few formal dinners in the past. He recalls the man's confident stride and smooth talk that used to impress everyone at corporate events. Now, Edmund and Iris seem too comfortable with each other. She leans in, resting a manicured hand on Edmund's forearm, whispering something that makes him chuckle. Graham's stomach churns. He slides a little in his seat, trying to stay out of direct view, overwhelmed by an inexplicable dread. Could this be an innocent coincidence? Perhaps they ran into each other, decided to chat over a meal. His pulse races as he catches snatches of their hushed conversation. They're seated just one table away, slightly behind a large decorative pillar. The restaurant's acoustic design means sound doesn't travel far, but every so often their voices float into Graham's hearing. He tries to remain inconspicuous, focusing intently on the deep maroon napkin in front of him. Suddenly he hears Iris's voice, subdued but with a teasing edge. Honestly, he's so clueless. He has no idea. His entire body tenses. A reply from Edmund drifts over. "After all this time, are you sure he's still completely ignorant?" Iris laughs quietly. "If Graham ever found out that Marina's yours..." She trails off. Edmund finishes for her with a low chuckle. He would lose his mind. They clink glasses, indulging in a twisted sense of triumph. Graham's head spins. Marina's Edmund's daughter? The words ricochet in his mind with brutal force. He grips the edges of the menu as if it's the only thing preventing him from collapsing. Memories flood him. The day Iris announced her pregnancy, the first ultrasound visit, the years he spent loving and raising Marina. Could it be a lie? Rattled, he catches another snippet of their laughter. Iris's voice again. Poor Graham. Such a boring man. I guess it works in our favor, though. He'll never suspect. Edmund hums in agreement. Yes, the old fool is too naive. They continue to talk softly, occasionally referencing their girl and how they kept it hidden from that busy corporate drone. Fury battles heartbreak in Graham's chest. He wants to stand up, confront them, fling every plate to the floor. But shock roots him to his seat. He can't bear to even look at them. He can't risk letting them spot him, not yet. Fighting to control his breathing, he signals the waiter, who is startled to see Graham's ashen face. Is everything all right, sir? Lewis asks. Graham's voice cracks. I need my check. But your guest hasn't... Cancel. I won't be staying, Graham mutters. He barely registers Lewis's flustered expression as the waiter scrambles to bring the bill for a club soda. Graham tosses a bill on the table without looking at the change. The shock has left him numb to logic or courtesy. Slipping out of the booth, he glances over his shoulder for one final look. Iris and Edmund, completely oblivious, are leaning closer, expressions bright. They appear like old lovers or conspirators reveling in the perfect con. Graham's legs feel like lead as he hurries toward the exit. The moment he steps onto the sidewalk, the balmy evening air slams into his lungs. He staggers toward a nearby lamppost for support, chest heaving in shallow gasps. People pass by, paying little attention to the distressed stranger in a suit. He fishes his phone from his pocket. On the screen is a text from his client, apologizing for the delay. Graham can't even muster a reply. Meeting canceled. He types these 2 words before shutting his phone off. Everything is too loud: his heartbeat, the taxi engines, the murmur of pedestrians. He focuses on staying upright, trying to make sense of the revelations swirling in his head. Marina might not be my daughter. Iris has lied for years. The scale of betrayal is unimaginable. He hailed a cab almost by reflex, giving his home address. On the ride, the driver glances at Graham through the rearview mirror. Rough day, pal? Graham can only nod slightly, eyes unfocused. As the city lights smear past, he contemplates a dozen scenarios, each more painful than the last. Should he storm into the house and demand answers, or corner Iris about what he overheard? But a deeper, more cautious voice inside warns him not to act rashly. He needs proof if he's going to confront her. Blind rage won't solve anything. By the time the taxi pulls up at his house, Graham's mind feels scorched. He lingers in the front seat, rummaging for cash to pay. The driver clears his throat gently. Hang in there, buddy. Nodding, Graham steps out and stands on the sidewalk, staring at the darkened windows of his suburban home. No one expects him to be back this early. If he walks in right now, face twisted with anger, what will happen? Iris will likely spin a story or accuse him of paranoia. And Marina is probably asleep. The very thought of looking at her, uncertain if he's truly her father, makes his throat tighten. Eventually, he can't bring himself to go inside. Instead, he heads around the block, finding a small deserted park. He sits on a bench, ignoring the mild chill in the air, trying to slow his spiraling thoughts. He replays the restaurant scene in his mind, dissecting every word. They laughed at me, calling me a boring man who'd never figure out the truth. Even the possibility that this might all be some bizarre misunderstanding can't hold up against the memory of Iris's own words. If Graham ever found out Marina's yours. At 9:30, his phone buzzes. It's a text from Iris. Marina is at a friend's house tonight. You coming home soon? He stares at the message, disgust churning in his gut. It's surreal how casually she texts, as though nothing is amiss. He doesn't reply. She has no idea I saw everything, he thinks bitterly. A wave of nausea hits him as he imagines how many times she's met Edmund secretly while Graham was out of town. Under the faint glow of a street lamp, Graham exhales shakily. He'll need time to process, to gather evidence, to confirm the unthinkable truth about Marina's paternity. Right now, he's just a man who stumbled onto the harsh reality of his wife's deception. The anger pumping through his veins is tempered by heartbreak and betrayal. Eventually, he forces himself to his feet. He can't sleep in a park all night. He steps quietly through his own front door, bracing for a confrontation. But the house is silent, most of the lights off. Iris must already be in bed, or at least pretending to be. Graham heads to the spare room, closes the door, and sinks onto a small sofa. He doesn't bother changing clothes. His mind churns with the echo of that mocking conversation. He's so clueless. He has no idea. Something inside him hardens, a steely resolve born of pain. If Iris wants to treat him like a fool, she's about to learn just how dangerous a man can be when he's been pushed too far. Morning comes in gray shards of light through the spare room window. Graham has barely slept. His heart pounds with residual shock at the memory of seeing Iris and Edmund Turner together. He knows he can't charge blindly at Iris with accusations she'd only deny everything. Instead, he decides to investigate. His mind conjures an image of a non-nonsense private investigator, the type who rummages through digital footprints and tails suspicious spouses with steady patience. Graham's never hired someone like that before, but if there was ever a time, it's now. Slipping out before dawn, he heads to a nearby cafe that opens early. The interior is modest, scuffed tiled floors, a menu board with flickering lights. Graham orders black coffee and finds a corner booth. He scrolls his phone, searching for private investigators in Riverside County, scanning reviews and rates. Eventually, a name stands out: Clarissa Hale, ex-law enforcement background, known for handling delicate domestic cases discreetly. Graham taps the phone number, heart thudding. After 3 rings, a brisk female voice answers, "Hale Investigations, Clarissa speaking." He clears his throat. "Hi, yes, my name is Graham Cole. I need help with a personal matter." "All right, Mr. Cole," she replies in a businesslike tone. "We can arrange a preliminary consultation. How urgent is the matter?" "Very," Graham says, letting the tension bleed into his voice. "I discovered something last night that changes my entire life." They agree to meet at Clarissa's office that afternoon. The rest of the day crawls by. Graham intentionally avoids going home until he's certain Iris has left for errands or a hair appointment anywhere but the house. If she's home, he fears he'll lash out, or she'll sense his unusual agitation. Early afternoon finds him stepping into Clarissa Hale's cramped office. The walls are lined with black and white photos, presumably from her previous cases or personal snapshots of cityscapes. Clarissa herself, in her mid-40s with short, efficient hair, greets him with a firm handshake. "Mr. Cole, pleasure. Let's get started." Once seated, Graham attempts to sum up the last 24 hours without dissolving into rage. Clarissa listens intently, scribbling notes on a legal pad. When he finishes describing the restaurant encounter, she taps her pen on the paper. "So, you suspect your wife's been cheating on you, possibly for years. And you believe there's a chance your daughter isn't biologically yours." Graham's throat tightens at the spoken truth. "Yes, and I need proof. If I confront her blindly, she'll lie. I need something solid." Clarissa nods. "The biggest question is, do you want evidence for a divorce proceeding, or is this about understanding the truth behind your daughter's paternity?" He hesitates. "Both, I guess. But primarily, I need to know if Marina is truly not my child." Clarissa stands, rummages in a file cabinet before pulling out a couple of forms. "If you want a formal DNA test, we'll need a sample from your daughter. That can be hair, saliva, anything with her genetic material. We can run it against yours discreetly." She eyes him carefully. "It might be tricky if your wife or daughter are suspicious." A wave of guilt and sadness washes over Graham. Marina my own daughter, or is she? He remembers how she used to cling to him as a toddler. Now he's about to do a test behind her back, but he steels himself. "I'll figure out a way." They discuss fees and timelines. Clarissa also offers to run a background check on Edmund Turner, track phone records, see if there's a paper trail confirming the affair. Graham leaves the office with a folder of documents to sign, feeling hollow yet resolute. Over the next week, he orchestrates a carefully constructed facade at home. He arrives late, leaves early, avoids lingering in rooms with Iris. If she questions his distant behavior, he deflects with talk of stress at work. Marina is mostly aloof, but ironically, that helps. She rarely speaks to him unless she needs money or a ride. When the weekend arrives, the moment to gather a DNA sample presents itself unexpectedly. Marina comes home from a friend's party, obviously intoxicated. Graham hears her fumbling with the front door around midnight. He steps out of the spare room, catching a whiff of alcohol. "Marina, are you okay?" She shushes him with a finger to her lips, giggling in a way that suggests she's definitely had too many drinks. He gently guides her to the living room couch. She mumbles something about "Mom's not home yet," and collapses onto the cushions, dozing off almost immediately. Graham's heart pounds with a mix of concern and grim resolve. This is his chance. He fetches a clean cotton swab from the bathroom, the one Clarissa gave him. Kneeling beside Marina, he hesitates. Her hair is splayed across her face. The faint smell of liquor clings to her clothes. Is he really about to do this? A war rages inside him, paternal protectiveness versus the urgent need for truth. In the end, suspicion wins. Carefully, he swabs the inside of her cheek, then seals it into a plastic evidence bag. She stirs but doesn't wake. Afterward, guilt surges. He checks her temperature, ensures she's comfortable. For years, he was Dad, the one who read her bedtime stories, who taught her to ride a bike. Now here he is, collecting DNA behind her back. The betrayal stings in both directions. If what he fears is true, she's not really his. But if he's wrong, he's just violated her privacy for nothing. Early Monday, Graham meets Clarissa in a parking lot behind a strip mall, handing over the sealed bag. She reassures him the test will be done quickly. Then begins the agonizing wait. Within days, Clarissa calls. Her voice is calm, professional. "I have the lab results, Mr. Cole. You may want to come in." He can't read her tone. Fear stabs at him. He speeds to her office in near silence, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The entire time he imagines possible outcomes. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. Maybe she's truly my daughter inside Clarissa's office. She hands him the sealed envelope. Graham tears it open with shaking fingers. He reads the words that confirm his worst nightmare. Probability of paternity, 0%. He stares at the text, cold shock washing through him like a tidal wave. That single line discards nearly 2 decades of fatherhood, cuts him out of Marina's life by blood. Clarissa speaks gently. "I'm sorry. I know this is difficult." Graham's mouth is dry. He can't even speak. All the anger he's kept simmering roars to the surface. He thinks of how Iris must have known all this time, forcing him to play a role that wasn't his. They're the 2 people he dedicated his life to, Iris and Marina, and now one is a stranger by biology, the other a deceitful spouse. In that moment, something in Graham's gaze hardens, a new, icy determination. "What else can you find out?" he asks Clarissa, voice hoarse but resolute. She meets his stare. "We'll dig into your wife's phone records, her finances, any hidden accounts or rendezvous. We'll track how far back this affair goes." Graham nods. "Do it. I need everything." He steps outside into the glare of afternoon sunlight, the test results still clutched in a trembling hand. He once believed the heartbreak couldn't get worse. Now he knows differently. Anger surges through him like molten steel, forging something cold and unbreakable in its wake. Graham Cole sits in his parked car, the engine idling softly outside a small, nondescript office building. He's preparing to walk in and hear the full investigator's report from Clarissa Hale, details that might dismantle everything he ever believed about his marriage. The DNA test already shattered the illusion of paternity. Now he's bracing for how deeply Iris's betrayal might run. Finally, he cuts the engine and steps out. The late afternoon sun glints against the tinted windows, reflecting a distorted version of himself. Who is this man? He wonders. He never thought he'd be the kind of person to sift through phone records and secret meetings. But here he is, desperation fueling the need to know. Clarissa's office is quieter than usual. She greets him at the door with a tight smile. "Come on in. I've compiled everything in a folder for you. It's comprehensive." Her demeanor is cautious, as though she's handing him a live grenade. They settle into chairs around a compact conference table. Clarissa slides a thick manila folder across to him. "I cross-referenced phone logs, credit card statements, and some email metadata. I also interviewed a couple of people on the periphery neighbors, an old co-worker of Iris's, nothing too intrusive, just enough to confirm patterns." She points to highlighted sections in the folder. "You'll see the repeated references to E. Turner. Some entries go back over 15 years. Graham clenches his jaw. 15 years. That timeline predates Marina's birth. He flips the pages, scanning call timestamps, brief notes on suspicious charges like hotel reservations and out-of-town trips matching the times he was traveling for work. The deeper he reads, the more the bile rises in his throat. Clarissa's voice is steady, almost clinical. It appears that Iris and Edmund had an ongoing relationship well before your wedding. The affair paused for a short stretch, possibly after you two got engaged, but resumed not long after your honeymoon. As you can see from the text logs, they were in contact at least weekly for years, sometimes daily. Tremors of rage and sorrow quake through Graham's arms. He can barely keep the pages steady. One note references an upscale hotel in the city where Iris supposedly spent a weekend with friends. Another documents a trip to a nearby beach town the same weekend Graham was finalizing a critical business deal overseas. Each entry is another dagger to the gut. Then Clarissa shifts uncomfortably. There's also a piece of testimony from a former co-worker of Iris's, someone named Shannon Blum, who recognized Edmund from holiday gatherings. Shannon indicated that even during your engagement, she suspected something. She saw Iris and Edmund in the parking lot more than once, hugging or kissing. Graham's mind conjures an image of Iris in her old front desk attire, her arms wrapped around Edmund behind the building while Graham was inside, probably preparing for another training session or sipping coffee in naive bliss. He exhales a long, shaky breath. I guess I was the last to know. Clarissa's gaze softens. Sometimes people ignore red flags because they love their partner. It doesn't make you foolish, just trusting. They continue sifting through the evidence. The strangest part is how methodical the betrayal seems. Coded references on phone bills, subtle travel schedules. They carefully avoided leaving an obvious digital paper trail, but not carefully enough for a trained investigator. At one point, Clarissa treads delicately. This may be difficult to read, but there's mention of how they orchestrated Marina's paternity deception. Texts from around the time she was born. Edmund apparently wanted to see the baby. Iris refused, citing how it would be too risky. She flips to a heavily redacted text log from years ago. The highlighted snippet reads, "We can't blow this now Graham thinks she's his." Graham's insides recoil. The memory of holding newborn Marina in the hospital, tears in his eyes, merges with the vile realization that Iris was orchestrating a charade behind his back. A wave of humiliation washes over him. He clutches the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. She never gave me a chance to question it, he mutters. She just kept me in the dark. Clarissa closes the folder gently. I'm sorry this is so extensive, but you wanted the full picture, and it's not pretty. For a moment, Graham can't speak. He stares at the scattered pages, feeling the weight of a decade's worth of manipulation. 1,000 half-remembered moments now click into place. Iris's dismissive attitude, her sidelong criticisms, even her strange excitements about big expenses that she insisted Graham pay for. All of it underlined by a secret history with another man. Eventually, Clarissa breaks the silence. What's your next move? Graham straightens. My next move. He runs a hand through his hair. I want to confront them, but I also realize if I blow up now, I could lose the chance to get real justice. Legally, financially. I need to be strategic. Clarissa nods. I can keep investigating if you need more detail or monitor current communications. But from what I see, you already have significant proof that your wife knowingly deceived you. A grim resolve settles over Graham's features. He remembers overhearing them at the restaurant, laughing at his supposed ignorance. They stole from him the life he believed in. He won't barge into the house tonight in a fury. No, that's exactly what they expect from a boring man who can't keep his emotions in check. Instead, he'll do something they won't see coming. He thanks Clarissa, stands up, and heads to the door with the folder pressed to his side. On the drive home, his thoughts swirl with heartbreak and vengeance. The sense of betrayal is monstrous, but beneath it simmers an idea. He'll gather everything, wait for the perfect moment. If Iris and Edmund thought they were cunning, they're about to face a version of Graham they never imagined. As he pulls into his driveway, the sun sinks below the horizon, casting long shadows across the neatly trimmed lawn. Inside, the house is dark except for a lamp in the living room. Likely Iris is out, maybe with a friend, maybe with him. Marina is probably holed up in her room, oblivious to the truth that's shattering Graham's world. He sits in the car a bit longer, inhaling and exhaling, steeling himself. A swirl of confusion tugs at him. A fraction of fatherly love lingers for Marina, even if she's not his by blood. Another wave of grief hits him, but the heartbreak is soon overshadowed by the raw need to set things right. He cannot let Iris walk away unscathed from decades of deceit. Eventually, he enters the house. He greets Marina briefly. She's in the kitchen, rummaging for a snack. She looks up, eyes mildly curious at his drawn expression. "You good?" she asks. "Work stuff," he responds flatly. She doesn't press. If only she knew the truth. But for now, Graham keeps his voice measured, face blank. He heads to the spare room, closes the door behind him, and locks it. That night, he hardly sleeps. Each time he shuts his eyes, he sees an image of Iris with Edmund, whispering about Marina's real father, mocking Graham. He feels the swirl of sadness, the ache of betrayal, then a growing determination. With the evidence piling up, he's on the brink of a pivotal decision, to confront or to scheme. And the latter feels more compelling by the minute. Days turn into a tense vigil of secrecy. Graham, armed with the folder from Clarissa Hale, now possesses enough information to expose Iris and Edmund. But he's not ready to show his hand. If he storms in, brandishing documents and rage, he might get emotional satisfaction but no long-term accountability. One afternoon, while finishing up a mundane report at the office, his phone buzzes. The caller ID reads unknown. Graham hesitates, then answers. A confident female voice greets him. "Mr. Cole? This is Rosalind Turner. I believe we have a mutual interest in Mr. Edmund Turner." Instantly, Graham tenses. Rosalind, Edmund's wife. He vaguely recalls meeting her once at a corporate function, an elegant, poised woman with an intense gaze. "How did you get my number?" he asks carefully. "From a friend who still works at the old trading firm," Rosalind replies, voice tight with carefully controlled fury. "I suspect my husband is involved in an ongoing affair, and your name came up in certain phone logs. That led me to you. Are you aware of what Edmund's been doing?" Graham exhales. He wonders if Clarissa somehow reached out to Rosalind, or if this is purely Rosalind's own detective work. Either way, they share a common target. "Yes," he says quietly, scanning the empty hallway outside his cubicle. "I'm aware, and I have proof." A brief silence. "I see. May I suggest we meet, Mr. Cole? Somewhere neutral. I think we should compare information." Rosalind's tone is clinical, lacking any warmth. She's been wrong, too, and it shows. Later that evening, they arrange to meet at a coffee shop near downtown. Graham picks a table in the back corner. He sits, tapping his foot anxiously. Eventually, a well-dressed woman in her 50s steps in, glances around, then locks eyes with him. She carries herself with a certain regal composure, but there's tension in the way she grips her purse. They exchange curt greetings. Over steaming lattes, Rosalind speaks first. "Edmund has lied to me many times, but I never had solid proof of his ongoing affair until recently." She opens her phone, shows Graham a text thread. Lines of coded messages referencing meetups, cover stories, and even a mention of Marina's name. Graham's pulse quickens at the confirmation that yes, this is the same web of deceit. He slides Clarissa's summary forward. "My wife, Iris, and your husband, Edmund, have been involved for years, possibly decades. I also discovered Marina isn't biologically mine. Edmund is her father." The words taste bitter. Rosalind's eyes flicker with understanding, but no sympathy. Her jaw sets. "Then we've both been made fools," she says softly. "I have no intention of letting Edmund walk away from this scot-free." Graham nods. "I need justice, not just a confrontation. I want to ensure they pay for the hurt they've caused." He's not talking about petty revenge, he's talking about something deeper and more methodical. Rosalind studies him for a moment, then sets down her coffee cup with a determined clink. "Edmund relies on me financially more than he'd like to admit. My family connections gave him an easy retirement. If I can prove infidelity, I can tear that safety net away. They spend the next hour conferring over potential strategies. Rosalind mentions influential lawyers who excel in exposing hidden assets. Graham references Clarissa's willingness to gather more evidence if needed. At one point, Rosalind's composure cracks and she mutters, "He humiliated me. I gave him everything and he does this?" Graham understands all too well. Betrayal is a rancid, all-consuming wound. When they part ways outside the shop, the night air is crisp. Rosalind adjusts her coat. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Cole. If you decide to move forward with a coordinated plan, I'll support you. Anything to ensure Edmund and your wife face the consequences." Graham dips his head in agreement. "Thank you, Mrs. Turner. I'll gather my next steps." He drives home with adrenaline pumping. Something about connecting with Rosalind has solidified his intention. It's no longer an abstract idea of, maybe I'll get them back. Now, he sees a path, a way to systematically dismantle the comfort Iris and Edmund enjoy. They orchestrated my humiliation. They turned me into an unwitting bystander in my own marriage, he thinks, gripping the wheel. Now it's my turn to set the stage. Stepping into the house, he's greeted by Iris's bored expression from the sofa. She lowers the volume on the TV. "Working late again?" she asks. Graham forces a casual shrug. "Meetings ran over." Inside he's seething, but his facade remains calm. He perches briefly on the armchair, feeling her suspicious gaze flick over him. Marina emerges from her bedroom to rummage the fridge. She looks at them both but says nothing, returning to her texting. The tension is thick, but only Graham fully comprehends why. Iris senses something off but can't pinpoint it. Graham glances at her, recalling the photo of her in that hotel with Edmund, the phone records confirming repeated trysts. A wave of revulsion threatens to break his composure. Instead, he quietly stands. "I'm going to my room. I'll see you in the morning." She doesn't protest. "Sure," she replies flatly, turning back to the TV. Once alone, Graham locks the door and calls Clarissa from the number she provided for after-hours contact. "I have an ally now, Rosalind Turner. We want to coordinate." Clarissa's voice crackles through the line. "Understood. Just let me know how you want to proceed and I'll gather whatever you need." Graham stands by the window, looking out into the dark suburban street. This house, once a symbol of family life, now feels like an elaborate stage set for betrayal. He pictures Iris's future meltdown when she realizes the evidence is stacked against her. He imagines Edmund's smug grin wiped clean when Rosalind pulls financial support. The thought ignites a grim satisfaction. Yet beneath that satisfaction lies profound sorrow. Every memory of joyous fatherhood, every milestone with Marina, has been irrevocably tainted. He can't easily shut off the pain, no matter how furious he feels. A small voice inside questions if he still loves them in some capacity, but love twisted by lies can transform into something else entirely, something cold, calculating, and bent on retribution. Soon he powers down his phone and sinks into bed. He forces his mind away from the emotional hurricane, focusing on the plan. He won't act rashly. Instead, he'll smile and nod at Iris until the day he springs the trap. They have no clue the walls are closing in. The final thought flickering through his mind as he drifts off is a quiet vow. They wanted to make me the fool. Now I'll show them what a patient man can do when there's nothing left to lose. Late evening shadows dance across Graham Cole's living room as he sits at the small desk he's dragged in from the spare bedroom. The overhead lamp casts a yellowish glow on a stack of statements, property records, and printed screenshots. He's been combing through these documents for hours, finalizing every detail of his plan, a quiet storm about to descend on Iris, Marina, and Edmund. Weeks have passed since Graham confirmed Iris's deceit and aligned with Rosalind Turner, Edmund's wife. In that time, Clarissa Hale, his private investigator, has uncovered more data on Iris's finances, credit cards she opened in both their names, an alarming list of charges that Graham never approved. He sets aside a page that shows repeated spa visits, designer purchases, and pricey dinners in other cities. Each line item is another knife in his back, but also more fuel for the plan. He taps a letter from the bank regarding his newest property acquisition. Worthless mountain land is how the real estate agent had referred to it, large in acreage, but effectively unmarketable due to zoning regulations and costly maintenance. The land taxes alone are a headache. Most people wouldn't touch it. But Graham's entire strategy hinges on transferring this worthless property to Iris, letting her believe it's a high-value asset. After all, it's quietly financed under a confusing shell arrangement that looks legitimate on the surface. His phone vibrates. An incoming text from Damon Shaw, an old friend who relocated abroad years ago. Damon's message reads, "Ready whenever you are, buddy. Don't rush if you still have business to handle at home." Damon, a calm and resourceful entrepreneur, had been inviting Graham to join him overseas for ages. Now it's becoming part of Graham's masterstroke. Sever ties here, finalize the trap for Iris and Edmund, then vanish to rebuild his life. Graham texts back, "Soon, thanks." He can almost imagine Damon's broad grin, standing in some sleek office waiting to welcome him into a new venture. The contrast between that bright horizon and the festering betrayal in his own home is stark. He rifles through a folder labeled Evidence. Inside are printed screenshots of text conversations between Iris and Edmund, pictures discreetly taken by Clarissa, and the DNA results confirming Marina's true paternity. He's compiled everything in chronological order, culminating in an airtight case of infidelity and fraud. The next step is to stash duplicates in safe places, multiple copies, just in case. He's well aware that once he springs this trap, Iris or Edmund might try desperate moves to bury the truth. In the hallway, he hears footsteps. Iris's voice floats in from the kitchen. She's on the phone, presumably with a friend, complaining about some minor inconvenience. The complaints slip past his ears now. He's beyond caring about her daily grievances. Instead, he focuses on carefully labeling each envelope. A faint tap at his door. Iris peeks her head in, though she keeps her distance. "You're still up?" she asks, suspicious eyes flicking to the piles of documents. He forces a benign smile. "Work stuff. We've got some complicated deals in the pipeline." It's not a lie, but not the full truth. She purses her lips, clearly curious, but doesn't push too hard. "Fine. Don't stay up all night." With a shrug, she disappears back into the hallway. Graham exhales slowly. He knows that if she digs deeper, she'd only see spreadsheets and official-looking papers that might not mean much to her yet. One glance at the worthless land file might reassure her that he's investing in new properties. Yes, let her think that's valuable, he muses darkly. A day later, he finalizes the property transfer. Sitting in a quiet corner of a title company's office, Graham signs his name repeatedly, designating Iris Cole as the beneficiary upon the official stamp. The clerk, an older gentleman with reading glasses perched on his nose, offers a polite smile. "Quite a gift for your spouse," he remarks, eyes flicking over the documentation. Graham musters a nod. "We believe in planning for the future," he says calmly, though an ironic bitterness laces his words. Back in his car, he calls Clarissa to confirm the next steps. She's impressed by how meticulously he's moving his money. In the last week, Graham has quietly withdrawn funds from the main joint account, depositing them into a private overseas bank Damon recommended. The amounts are small enough at a time not to trigger immediate suspicion, but cumulatively, it's a substantial portion of what he's earned. "There's no turning back after this," Clarissa warns. "Are you sure you're ready?" Graham's gaze drifts to the suburban houses around him, each one carefully maintained, illusions of perfect domestic bliss. "I've never been more certain," he replies. His voice carries the weight of heartbreak that's congealed into resolve. When he returns home, he tucks a manila envelope into a locked cabinet in the garage, a backup copy of the affair documents. The rest he carries upstairs, storing them in a locked suitcase that he keeps under his bed. He can't shake the sense that time is ticking. Soon, Iris will realize that the finances are shifting. He needs everything in place before that day comes. He also calls Damon for a more personal conversation, a respite from the tension. They reminisce about old times, college pranks, road trips, the camaraderie they once shared. Damon picks up on the undercurrent of sadness in Graham's voice and gently says, "Hey, I'm not gonna pry, but if you need anything, you have me." Graham exhales, gratitude mixing with exhaustion. "Yeah, thanks." That night, he cracks open a single beer in the living room while Iris showers upstairs. The house is quiet, except for the whir of the bathroom fan. Marina is out with friends, continuing her carefree social life. He sips the beer slowly, letting the bitterness linger on his tongue. Scenes flash in his mind. Iris and Edmund giggling at that restaurant, the cold fact that Marina is Edmund's child, the phone records linking them for years. He sets the bottle down, pressing his lips together. I will not be the fool they think I am. The worthless land, the rerouted funds, the carefully documented evidence, these are the edges of the net he's weaving. Soon, he'll pull it tight, and there'll be no escape for Iris or Edmund. He's not sure how he'll feel when it all collapses, but he can't turn back now. By the time he finally goes to bed, the clock reads well after midnight. The hush of the house is almost oppressive. He slips under the covers, heart pounding with anticipation for the next phase. Tomorrow he'll finalize more bank transfers. He'll also send Damon a partial deposit to secure his spot in the overseas venture. The trap is nearly complete. All he needs now is the right trigger to set it off. He closes his eyes, letting sleep pull him under. In that drifting moment before consciousness fades, he repeats a silent mantra: stay calm, stay patient, and wait for Iris to make her move. 2 weeks later, Graham finds himself in a cramped hotel room in Singapore, another stop in his relentless travel schedule. He's there to finalize a minor deal for the trading company, ironic, considering he's preparing to leave this job soon. Outside his window, the city's skyline glitters in the midday sun, bright and modern. But Graham barely notices. His focus is on the envelope lying on the small table by the door. It arrived earlier that morning via expedited courier. The label reads, "Confidential from Iris Cole." Graham felt a jolt of grim amusement when he signed for it. He already knows what's inside: divorce papers. He cracks the seal and unfolds the documents. Sure enough, the cover letter is from a local attorney's office he recognizes from prior dealings with his wife. She must have used them for small legal matters in the past. The letter states, in formal language, that Iris Cole seeks a divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences. Under the financial section, there's a heavy demand for alimony. The figure is staggering, more than half of Graham's net worth, or what Iris believes is his net worth. She also requests a significant portion of any joint assets. Reading through it, Graham grimaces at the boldness. She's certain she'll squeeze him dry. The settlement terms hint that she expects him to roll over and sign, possibly from overseas without a fight. The final lines make him smirk. We look forward to your prompt compliance. Just then, his phone lights up with an incoming call. The screen flashes Iris. He contemplates letting it ring out. But no, this is the moment he's been anticipating. With steady composure, he answers. "There you are," Iris says, voice crackling slightly across the distance. She doesn't bother with pleasantries. "So, you got the papers?" Graham nods, though she can't see. "I did." Her tone is triumphant, almost giddy. "I need them signed. Everything's outlined. After all these years of you traveling, ignoring your family, well, consider this your consequence." She lets out a dry laugh, like she's amused by her own cunning. "It's time I move on, and I deserve compensation for wasting my life on you." Graham takes a measured breath. "I understand." He keeps his voice calm, revealing none of the fury and heartbreak simmering beneath. A quiet pause lingers. From the background, he hears another voice, Marina interjecting, "Let him know he owes me too." Then Iris speaks up. "Marina's also had enough. She's the one who encouraged me to do this. She's tired of you being a, how'd she put it, boring wallet with no soul." The last words drip with cruelty. Graham's chest tightens, but he clamps down on his emotions. They think I'm powerless, still the clueless husband. "All right," he says softly. "We'll settle this. Send me your final demands and I'll sign." Iris hesitates, possibly thrown by his lack of resistance. "Well, yes, that's exactly what's in the paperwork. Don't take too long. We need the money." In the background, Marina shouts, "We want it done like yesterday!" She giggles, and Iris laughs with her. The phone crackles a bit as they rejoice in what they imagine is their victory. "That's all, then?" Graham asks, voice so even it's almost eerie. Iris's laughter subsides. "Yes, submit it within a week or so. And remember, the alimony is non-negotiable. You owe us." Graham ends the call, exhaling slowly. The silence of the hotel room envelops him. He stands by the window, gazing at the sunlit skyscrapers. For a moment, he feels a pang memories of the early days when Iris used to call him at work just to say she missed him, or how Marina would wait by the window for him to come home. All of that is gone, replaced by malice. With trembling hands, he dials Clarissa's number. She answers promptly. "It's done," he says. "She sent the divorce papers. She's demanding a massive settlement." Clarissa responds with a dry laugh. "Well, it was bound to happen. Are you ready for your next step?" Graham's gaze shifts to the nightstand where a thick folder rests an amalgamation of every damning piece of evidence. "Oh, I'm ready. It's time to set the final pieces in motion." He calls Damon next, updating him on the situation. Damon's tone is measured. "They think they've cornered you, but you've got them where you want them." "Exactly," Graham says, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I'll finish my business here, sign the papers, and make sure Iris receives all she's asked for, just not in the way she expects." Hours later, he sits at the small hotel desk, scanning the documents one last time. He notices the arrogance in each clause, almost as if Iris wrote it herself. Disclaimers that Graham must pay spousal support for years, plus a hefty immediate payout. The comedic part is that once he moves the final amounts from their joint accounts to his private overseas fund, the official balance left for her is next to nothing. And the big property she thinks is so valuable? A worthless piece of land that will cost her thousands in upkeep. Graham closes the folder, feeling an odd, steady calm. This is the moment he's anticipated since discovering the affair. He can almost hear Iris and Marina popping a celebratory bottle at home once they imagine they've won. But they have no clue the extent of his planning. Night falls, draping the city in neon lights. Graham flicks off the lamp, leaving only the glow from the window. He sends a digital signature to his lawyer, effectively agreeing to the divorce but on his timeline. He imagines Iris's face when she finally sees what's left in the joint accounts. When she receives the deed to that worthless land. A chill runs down his spine, half thrill, half sorrow. Tossing the phone on the bed, he allows himself a brief moment of sadness. Despite the vengeance fueling him, there's still an ache for the life he once thought he had. But his heartbreak has transformed into something else, a calculated drive to reclaim control. Tomorrow he boards a flight back home to finalize the final steps. That's when the real show begins. Graham's flight touches down in his hometown just past noon. He steps off the plane with a sense of quiet resolve. The standard routine of baggage claim and finding a taxi feels surreal, like the calm before a storm. Outside, the sky threatens rain, clouds hanging low. Fitting weather, he thinks wryly. Instead of going straight home, he heads to a small legal office where he's arranged to finalize the divorce papers. As he enters the modest reception area, the attorney, Mr. Fenwick, greets him politely. Fenwick has only recently been brought into Graham's circle of trust, tasked with ensuring the documentation is watertight from Graham's side. Iris Cole's attorney expects these forms within the week, Fenwick says, tapping a neat stack of papers. Graham silently reviews them, noting how each page aligns with Iris's outrageous demands. He signs wherever indicated, slipping in a final paragraph that references the property transfer to Iris. Fenwick eyes it curiously. "Are you sure about awarding her that specific property?" Graham's lips curve into a thin smile. "Positive." With the legalities in place, Fenwick assures him he'll file them promptly. Graham then takes a taxi home, anticipating the confrontation that's bound to unfold. By the time he pulls into the driveway, the skies opened into a light drizzle. Inside, the house is surprisingly silent. The living room stands deserted, a half-eaten sandwich on a plate near the TV. Graham wonders if Iris is out or simply in another room. He sets his suitcase down, heart pounding at the thought of what's about to happen. Seconds later, Iris appears at the top of the stairs, phone in hand. Surprise flickers across her face. "You're home early." Graham steps out of his shoes calmly. "Finished business faster than I expected." He notices her eyes dart to his suitcase, then back to him. "You have the paperwork?" Her tone brims with anticipation. He gives a slow nod. "Filed, signed." A pause. "Congratulations." The corners of his mouth lift slightly in a mocking half-smile. An undercurrent of confusion registers on her face. She was likely expecting him to argue or beg. Instead, He's matter-of-fact. She calls out, "Marina, come down!" Moments later, Marina trudges downstairs wearing earbuds. She yanks one out when she sees Graham. "What's he doing here?" she mutters. Iris places a hand on Marina's shoulder. "He signed the papers. We're about to be done with all this. Isn't that right, Graham?" She almost can't hide her glee. Graham looks at his daughter, or rather, the girl he once believed was his daughter, and sees only hostility in her gaze. He nods. "Yes. Once the attorney processes everything, we're divorced." Silence hangs for a moment. Then Marina smirks. "Guess you'll finally get what you deserve for ignoring us all these years." Her words sting, but he's past letting them show. Instead, he says softly, "Yes, I suppose I will." He heads to the kitchen and grabs a glass of water, trying to quell the swirl of emotions. He won't tip his hand yet. Soon, they'll check the bank accounts, see the emptiness. He steels himself for that uproar, for the meltdown that's inevitable once they realize their secure windfall is gone. The meltdown comes sooner than he expects. Late that same afternoon, while Graham's upstairs packing some clothes, he hears Iris shriek from the living room. Instantly, he sets down the shirt he's folding and rushes downstairs. Marina stands behind Iris, both staring at a laptop screen with expressions ranging from shock to anger. "What the hell is this?" Iris hisses, spinning around to face him. He maintains a calm exterior. "Is something wrong?" Marina's voice is high-pitched with panic. "The bank account has, no money in it." "Like literally a few $100. She glares at him. "Where's the rest?" Graham folds his arms, keeping his tone measured. "I moved funds around to handle some outstanding bills and other priorities." Iris practically spits with rage. "That was our marital money. You can't just drain it." "Right," he says. "But you wanted a divorce, so we separated assets." He can see the gears turning in Iris's mind. She sputters, "We were supposed to get half or more than half in alimony. Where is it?" Graham shrugs. "I gave you the property, didn't I?" he remarks nonchalantly. "Isn't that worth a lot? You'll come out ahead, trust me." He almost laughs at his own hidden meaning. Marina elbows her mother. "Check the property deed, Mom." They scramble through digital files, but even if they do, they won't immediately realize it's worthless. For now, they just see that it's land in a region known for scenic views. Possibly they think it's a gold mine. "How did you transfer everything so fast?" Iris demands. Her voice shakes with frustration. "We never discussed," Graham interrupts with a pointed stare. "You mailed the divorce papers overseas expecting me to sign them in a hurry. So I took action to ensure we parted ways fairly." His voice is icily calm, far from the docile husband they've mocked for years. A wave of confusion and dread flickers across Iris's face. She's realizing that the situation isn't in her control. "Where's Edmund in all this?" she blurts, as though he might magically fix it. Graham raises an eyebrow, feigning ignorance. "Edmund? Your, friend? Not sure how he'd help." Marina scowls, grabs her phone. "I'm calling him!" she snaps. Iris tries to hush her, but it's too late. They're already panicking, jostling for solutions. Graham steps aside, allowing them the space to unravel. This confrontation is just the beginning of their crash into reality. He quietly returns to the bedroom, shutting the door behind him. Leaning against it, he listens to the muffled chaos downstairs, angry curses, frantic phone calls. He feels an odd mixture of triumph and sadness. For so long they treated him as irrelevant or oblivious. Now they're discovering the man beneath that mild exterior. A man who has learned how to protect himself when he's got nothing left to lose. Eventually he moves to the window, peering out at the now pouring rain. His phone buzzes with a text from Rosalind Turner. "Edmund's meltdown is in progress. My lawyers have pinned his assets. We'll keep you updated." He can almost sense her satisfaction. If all goes as planned, Edmund's finances are also tumbling like a house of cards. Downstairs, Iris is still shouting. The words, "He's ruined us," and "This can't be legal," echo through the hallway. Graham exhales, letting a hollow feeling resonate in his chest. He never imagined it would come to this tearing down the family facade in such a calculated manner. Yet here he is, stepping onto the path that leads away from everything he once knew. He retrieves a worn duffel bag from the closet, tossing in clothes and essentials. He's not leaving tonight, not before the next phase. But he wants to be ready. On the bedside table sits the locked folder of evidence, waiting for final delivery. Soon, Iris will know every last piece of what he's discovered. And when that truth lands, the tremors will rattle her world even more than the missing bank balance. It's mid-morning when a courier van pulls up to Graham's house. Through the window, Graham watches as a young courier in a bright blue uniform strides up the walkway, carrying a certified envelope. This is the moment Graham has orchestrated with clockwork precision. The evidence is about to be dropped right at Iris's feet. He strolls downstairs, feigning casual interest as Iris opens the door. The courier hands her the envelope, requests a signature on a digital pad, and leaves. Iris tears the seal with trembling fingers. Marina hovers behind her, face pinched with anxiety. Graham remains a few steps back, arms folded. The hush that settles over the living room is unsettling. Iris's eyes flick across the documents. Her lips part in silent horror. Marina leans in, scanning the lines. A heartbeat later, they both spin around to face Graham with matching expressions of shock and fury. "You," Iris begins, but her voice chokes off. She waves the papers in the air. You're accusing me of fraudulent paternity? Emotional damages? Alimony deception?" She rattles off the bolded headings in the letter. Marina skims the attachment. "A DNA test?" She practically screeches. "You tested me without my permission?" Her cheeks burn red. Graham steps forward calmly. "Yes, because I had reason to believe you weren't my biological child." His tone is measured, yet every word lands like a hammer in the silent house. And that reason was correct. For a fleeting moment, Marina's eyes flicker with something akin to guilt or fear, but it vanishes, replaced by indignation. "That doesn't change you're my dad." He raises a hand, shutting her down softly. "Legally, it might. Morally, that's another matter. But your mother is the one who lied to me, to you, for years." Iris recovers enough to snarl. "How dare you? You can't do this to us." The letter in her hand details Graham's demand for compensation for forcibly deceiving him into raising another man's daughter, plus the legal ramifications if she tries to fight him in court. The attachments reveal extramarital affair photos, phone logs, the timeline of her rendezvous with Edmund. Marina's gaze flits from the scathing documentation to her mother. "He has pictures, Mom," she says in a shaky voice. "Pictures of you with Edmund at hotels, phone bills, this is crazy." Iris's cheeks blanch. She stumbles, words tumbling out. "You set this up. You planned it all." Graham doesn't smile, though a part of him wants to. "Yes, once I learned the truth, I gathered proof. Since you demanded so much money from me in the divorce, I decided to show you what real accountability looks like." A crash disrupts the tense scene. Edmund Turner bursts through the front door, ignoring any sense of politeness. His face is flushed, suit disheveled. "Iris!" he calls out in a panic. "We have a big problem, Rosalind. She seized my accounts. I'm done for if we don't—" He freezes when he sees Graham standing there, arms folded, the exposed documents strewn about. "Edmund," Graham greets, voice clipped. "Nice of you to join us." Edmund's jaw works silently, eyes darting from Iris to Marina, then to the papers in their hands. He turns a shade paler. You set me up too?" Graham lets out a soft chuckle. "You set yourselves up. I just connected the dots and provided them to the right people." Iris rushes to Edmund's side, brandishing the evidence. "He's claiming child support repayment. Emotional damages, he wants us to pay for everything." Marina steps back, clearly uncomfortable at the cluster of adults locked in confrontation. "Mom, what's going on with Mr. Turner's wife?" Edmund snaps. "She's freezing my assets, something about a top-tier legal team. I can't access half my accounts. My pension, everything's under review." Panic tinges his voice. He looks at Graham with a mix of hatred and desperation. You knew Rosalind would go after me?" Graham remains impassive. "She discovered the truth just like I did. We joined forces." He shakes his head in mock pity. "You should have thought twice before betraying a powerful woman like Rosalind. And me." A tense hush follows, broken only by the ticking clock in the hallway. Iris clutches at Edmund's arm. "But we have the property, right? The land Graham just transferred. We can sell it, get some funds." Graham's eyebrows arch. Yes, that lovely piece of land. By all means, attempt to sell it. Let me know how that goes. Edmund's face clouds with confusion. Land? Wait, what land are we talking about? Iris tries to explain in a rush something about how Graham gifted her a valuable property as part of the divorce. Edmund's expression sours. And you think that'll fix my financial crisis? Realization dawns on Iris's face. She suspects it might be worthless. Her voice trembles with unsteadiness. You tricked us. Graham offers a cool shrug. I gave you exactly what you asked for my property. Enjoy the taxes, the maintenance, and the utter lack of a market for it. Marina covers her mouth in shock. She glances at her phone, possibly considering calling the police or an attorney. But who would they complain to? That her father outmaneuvered them within legal bounds? Graham watches the meltdown calmly, seeing Iris and Edmund on the verge of panic, their illusions ripped away. Finally, Edmund lunges forward. You think this is over? I can still... His threat dissolves into a blustering snarl. He doesn't have the financial or legal means to do anything. He's unarmed in this confrontation, a once powerful man left humiliated. Graham squares his shoulders, stepping closer. Try whatever you want. I've collected enough evidence to bury both of you in lawsuits for years. And Rosalind's attorneys are just as prepared. Should you and Iris want to test your luck, be my guest. Iris flings the documents onto the table, voice rising in a shrill pitch. You won't get away with this, Graham. She points a shaking finger at him. We'll find a way to ruin you. He cuts her off, voice cold. You already tried. Look around, this is the outcome. Marina, suddenly pale, glares at her mother. Why didn't you just tell the truth from the beginning? She throws the DNA papers on the floor. The presence of her alleged biological father, Edmund, only makes the reality more suffocating. I can't believe this is my life, she mutters, eyes brimming with anger. Graham's gaze softens momentarily. He can see the shock hitting Marina, the realization of how manipulative Iris and Edmund have been, but he steels his heart. She chose to stand against him time and again, mocking him with her mother. Still, a part of him regrets how she's learning the truth. You both wanted a divorce and a payout, Graham says quietly. Now you have one. The difference is you're not getting the fortune you imagined. Iris and Edmund exchange frantic whispers, their voices frantic. We need to talk, Iris pleads, grabbing Edmund's sleeve. We'll fix it. We'll do something. They huddle by the door, rifling through papers, phone screens, trying to contact attorneys or bankers. Marina stands off to the side, tears of frustration streaking her cheeks. Graham watches from a few feet away, arms folded. Inside, he feels a swirl of vindication, heartbreak, and relief. This is the unraveling he's meticulously orchestrated. The only question is how far they'll spiral. As the arguments escalate, Marina storms out the door, yelling something about needing air and not dealing with this right now. Iris shouts after her, but is too consumed by her own panic to chase. Edmund's phone rings incessantly, likely calls from Rosalind's lawyers demanding compliance. Amid the chaos, Iris steps up to Graham, face twisted in rage. You ended our family. How could you do this? He regards her with pained eyes. You ended our family years ago when you lied about Marina's father. A heavy beat. I'm just making sure you can't hurt me any longer. Her mouth opens to retort, but no words come. She's left with the savage truth. They can't manipulate him anymore. The barrier of illusions has shattered. Finally, she backs away, nearly tripping over the scattered documents on the floor. Graham inhales, feeling the tension weigh on his chest. He steps around the piles of evidence, heading toward the staircase. Before ascending, he pauses and throws a final comment over his shoulder, voice eerily calm. This is only the beginning. You've read my demands. If you don't cooperate, I'll see you in court, and I have more than enough to win. Then he climbs the stairs, leaving Iris and Edmund to their frantic scramble. They threatened him, but he's got no intention of cowering again. As he reaches the landing, the scene below looks almost pitiful. Once arrogant people rifling through papers, wearing desperation like a noose. He shuts his bedroom door, exhaling a breath he feels he's been holding for months. Outside, the clouds loom low, thunder rumbling a promise of a storm. Inside this house, that storm has already hit and it's only just begun. A damp chill clings to the morning air as Graham Cole stands in front of the high-rise apartment building he once called home. He's wearing a simple navy jacket, hands pushed into the pockets as he awaits Damon Shaw's arrival. The faint roar of city traffic underscores his swirling thoughts today. He'll confront Iris, Marina, and Edmund on his terms, under his roof. Or more precisely, Damon's roof. This tower of mirrored glass and concrete was once the grand symbol of Graham's financial success, a space he purchased to satisfy Iris's desire for a prestigious address. But in his strategic maneuvers, he quietly transferred the apartment's ownership to Damon. Today, they'll expose that fact for the final time, forcing Iris and Marina to acknowledge that they have no real claim here. He checks his phone. A text from Damon pops up. "Parking now. Be up in 5. Graham exhales, tension knotting his shoulders. Over the last few days, Iris, Marina, and Edmund have become increasingly frantic, bouncing between this apartment and the worthless mountain land, struggling to salvage funds. Graham has received a flurry of angry texts and missed calls. He's responded with silence. Just as he pockets his phone, a black sedan glides to the curb. Out steps Damon Shaw, tall, well-groomed, exuding the calm confidence of a man who's weathered countless business storms. He spots Graham, raises a friendly hand, and crosses the sidewalk. "Morning," Damon says, voice low. "You ready for this?" Graham gives a tight nod. "As ready as I'll ever be." They enter through the sleek glass doors into a brightly lit lobby. A security guard glances their way, recognizes Graham, and offers a reserved nod. The ride up the elevator is tense. Damon stands quietly, giving Graham space. At the 30th floor, the doors slide open to reveal a hallway with thick carpeting and minimalist art, once a scene of domestic comfort, now tainted by betrayal. They pause outside the apartment's front door. Voices drift from within, a swirl of frustration and raised tones. Graham glances at Damon, whose expression signals quiet support. He knocks firmly. The door swings open to reveal Marina, wearing a rumpled sweatshirt and tear-streaked cheeks. She looks startled, eyes flicking from Graham to Damon. "What are you?" she begins, but Graham brushes past her into the foyer, ignoring her glare. Inside, the living room is in disarray. Half-packed boxes, scattered papers, empty takeout cartons. Iris stands near the windows, phone in hand, while Edmund Turner paces by the kitchen counter with an air of desperation. The tension in the room is palpable. Iris whips around. "You decided to show your face," she snaps. "We've been trying to call you." Graham's calm is unnerving, a stark contrast to their agitated state. "I've been busy," he says coolly. He gestures to Damon. "You all know Damon Shaw, I believe." Edmund narrows his eyes at Damon, who gives a brief, polite nod. "Yes, we've met," Edmund mutters, voice thick with resentment. He's clearly aware that Damon played a role in Graham's financial rearrangements. Sensing the unspoken tension, Marina blurts, "We're not leaving, Dad. This place is basically ours. You can't just throw us out." Her arms cross over her chest, chin trembling in defiance. Damon steps forward, clearing his throat. "Actually, this apartment is mine now," he says, voice measured. "We finalized the ownership transfer a couple of months ago." He holds up a legal document. "Your mother and you are no longer on any lease agreement." Iris's face goes pale. "What do you mean? No longer on the lease? Graham paid for this place." Damon nods, flicking his gaze between them. "He did. But as part of his overall asset reallocation, he sold the property to me. It's been under my name for weeks." Edmund stops pacing. "That's insane. There's no way this can be legal." His eyes dart to Graham. "You had no right." Graham's chuckle is humorless. "I had every right. You forced my hand when you demanded a divorce settlement so large it required me to find alternative methods to protect myself." A heavy hush hangs in the air. Outside, the city skyline glistens under early afternoon sun, mocking the bleak mood inside. Marina's facade cracks. She glances at Iris, voice shaking. "Mom, what do we do now?" Iris clutches her phone. "We're not leaving. This is my home. She stops, unable to articulate a coherent plan. She swallows hard, rage flickering in her eyes. "We'll sue you, Graham. You can't just upend our lives, or you—" She pivots, pointing at Damon. "You can't just throw us out on the street." Damon steps forward, unwavering. "I'm not throwing anyone out. But I'm also not renewing any sort of lease with you. Graham told me the circumstances, and let's just say I have no interest in renting to people who contributed to my friend's misery. Edmund stares at them, face turning blotchy red. You think you've won, but I'm telling you we'll find a way to challenge this. There must be a loophole. Graham steps in, voice low and controlled. Edmund, you should be more concerned about Rosalind's lawyers at this point. I hear they're quite thorough. Maybe you can find a new place once they're done seizing your assets. A flash of desperate anger crosses Edmund's features. He lunges toward Graham, chest puffed in aggression. This is your fault. You tricked me with that worthless land nonsense. You messed with my marriage, my retirement. Graham doesn't flinch, his posture rigid. You messed with my marriage. You fathered Marina. You lied for decades. Now it's coming back around. His words strike Edmund like blows. The older man's bravado falters. He stumbles back, turning to Iris for support that she can't muster. Marina's voice cracks. Dad, can't we at least stay a little longer? I don't have anywhere else. The panic in her eyes tugs faintly at Graham's heart. Despite the betrayal, he once loved her as a daughter. He exhales, struggling to maintain composure. You made choices, Marina, aligning with your mother, mocking me, going after money you believed was yours. I'm sorry it's come to this, but Damon and I have made our decision. The documents are final. Iris tries another angle. She moves closer to Graham, lowering her voice in a near plea. After all these years, you can't just shut us out, can you? We were a family once. She attempts a teary-eyed look, but it's overshadowed by the months of coldness and contempt that preceded today. Graham meets her gaze, remembering the naive young man he was, enthralled by her beauty and charm. We were, he admits quietly, but you destroyed it. A knock at the door interrupts the standoff. Damon opens it to reveal a middle-aged man in a gray polo, an employee from the building's management. Everything okay here, Mr. Shaw? We got a call about a disturbance. Damon nods. All fine. We're concluding some business. Thanks for checking. The manager glances uneasily at the tense group, but accepts Damon's word. Edmund, seeing an audience, tries one last time to posture. You're going to regret crossing me, Cole. I'll make sure of it. The threat sounds hollow, but his tone is venomous. Graham's eyes narrow. I've heard that before. Now you know how it feels to be on the receiving end of betrayal. With no further recourse, Iris's frustration turns into half-coherent sputtering. Marina's tears glisten, and she bolts to her bedroom, presumably to pack or perhaps to hide from the confrontation. Edmund stands there, fists clenched, at a total loss for how to fix the unraveling of his once cozy arrangement. Get your belongings, Damon says, voice firm but not unkind. I'm not here to humiliate you, but you can't stay. Iris looks as though she might crumble. For years, she thrived on controlling the narrative, rewriting the truth to fit her convenience. Now, she's faced with the reality that someone else holds the power. Without a final word, she storms down the hallway toward the bedrooms. Edmund lingers for a moment, glaring at Graham, then follows her. Only when they disappear does Graham allow himself a tremulous breath. Damon puts a hand on his shoulder, murmuring, You did what you had to. Graham scans the living room, once a scene of family gatherings, now a battlefield of broken trust. I know, he replies softly. It's still not easy. The pair stand in silence for a while, hearing the muffled arguments and frantic rummaging as Iris and Edmund collect a few prized possessions. The final confrontation is all but complete. Soon there will be no illusions left, no turning back. Eventually, Graham and Damon exchange a glance and head to the elevator, leaving Iris's group to pack. There's no need to watch them vacate. Graham has come face to face with his betrayers, and that alone was enough to sever the last fragile ties. As the elevator descends, Damon gently says, Let's finalize the legal side next. They'll likely try to fight or cause a scene, but we're well prepared. Graham nods, shoulders sagging. They can fight all they want, Damon. We've got the upper hand. Yet in a small corner of his mind, a pang of regret flickers. I once loved them. Why did it have to come to this? The doors slide open onto the lobby where sunlight floods in. Graham lifts his head, stepping forward. The fight is far from over, but the final confrontation in the apartment is done. Now come the legal consequences and the emotional aftermath that will linger far beyond any piece of paper. Late afternoon sunlight glares off the row of cars in the courthouse parking lot. Graham stands beside Damon, the crisp breeze tugging at his collar. They're here to address the eviction notice formally served on Iris and Marina. Though Damon owns the apartment, official paperwork is required to enforce their departure in case they refuse to leave quietly. Graham feels a pang of anxiety as they approach the courthouse entrance. Despite the deep hurt he harbors, the idea of physically removing Iris and Marina from their living space feels like a final, brutal blow. But it's a necessary step, and he steels himself with the knowledge that they brought this on themselves. At the security checkpoint, an older guard directs them to a small hearing room. Damon leads the way, stepping inside a plain space with a few chairs, a long table, and a bored-looking clerk seated behind a laptop. A sign on the door reads, "Eviction hearings by appointment." Iris and Marina haven't arrived yet, but Edmund is there, leaning against a wall with arms crossed. He looks up, eyes flashing anger at Graham. Damon greets him with icy silence. Graham simply nods, refusing to be baited by Edmund's glare. When the clerk calls them to the table, Damon presents the ownership documents for the apartment and the notice to vacate. He explains in calm, measured tones that the tenants, Iris and Marina, have no valid lease and have failed to leave by the requested date. He has no intention of renting to them further. 5 minutes into the hearing, Iris and Marina burst through the door, disheveled and clearly flustered. Iris tries to interrupt Damon, but the clerk shushes her. Once Damon finishes, the clerk turns to Iris. "Ma'am, do you have a legal basis to remain in the property?" Iris sputters. "It was our family home for years. It was purchased by my ex-husband, and now suddenly transferred? That can't be legitimate." Damon stays composed. He passes a neatly compiled binder across the table. "The transfer was done lawfully, with all proper documentation. I assure you there's nothing sudden about it." The clerk thumbs through the pages, occasionally nodding. Marina chimes in, eyes wet with frustration. "Where are we supposed to go? He can't just kick us out." She glares at Graham, who stands behind Damon's seat, silent but resolute. With a weary sigh, the clerk addresses them. "Under state law, the property owner has the right to request eviction if there is no existing lease or if the lease has been legally terminated." Looking at Iris, the clerk asks, "Do you have a written agreement with Mr. Shaw guaranteeing tenancy?" Iris pales. "No, because we never needed one. He wasn't always the owner." She glances at Graham, desperate to shift blame, but the clerk only focuses on the facts. Edmund tries a last-ditch argument. "This is about more than a lease. These are extenuating circumstances. Family matters, financial disputes, pending lawsuits." He gestures furiously at Graham. "This is a vengeful eviction. He's doing it to punish them." The clerk purses his lips. "Motive doesn't automatically invalidate the property owner's right. If Mr. Shaw can prove ownership and has followed eviction procedure, that's sufficient." A tense hush ensues. Iris, trembling with indignation, flips through her own hastily assembled documents. "But we have nowhere else. The other property is worthless. We were working on a solution." She trails off as she realizes the clerk's expression is unmoved. After reviewing Damon's evidence, the clerk formally grants the eviction order. He instructs Iris and Marina to vacate within a specified time frame immediately, in practical terms, but legally enforced within 72 hours. If they fail to do so, law enforcement will be involved. The blow is final. Iris slumps in her chair, tears welling up. Marina stares at the table, face blank with shock. Edmund mutters a curse under his breath. Graham wonders if Edmund might lash out physically again, but the presence of an official and a security guard outside the door keeps him in check. As they exit the hearing room, Edmund grabs Graham's arm. "Look at what you've done," he hisses, voice low. "You destroyed your own family, and for what?" Graham shakes him off, steadying his voice. "My family was destroyed the moment you decided to father a child with my wife. I'm just finishing what you started." Damon touches Graham's shoulder, guiding him away. There's no point in further confrontation in the courthouse hallway. Iris stands with Marina, both glancing around as if searching for an ally who doesn't exist. No one here is sympathetic to their predicament. They're just another case on the docket, another example of a tenant without legal ground to stay. Outside the courthouse, a swirl of cloud cover dims the afternoon sun. They stand on the stone steps, traffic humming below. Iris, tears streaking her cheeks, confronts Graham for the last time. "You won't get any satisfaction from this. You'll regret it, waking up in an empty bed every day. We were your family, no matter how you twist it." He clenches his jaw, breathing through a surge of conflicting emotions. "You were," he admits quietly, echoing the sentiment from the apartment confrontation. "But that family you talk about was built on deceit, and you know it." She shakes her head, anger overshadowing her tears. Marina stands a step behind, looking lost. Graham wonders if the guilt of mocking him and conspiring with Iris is dawning on her, but he can't find empathy in his heart right now. Everything is too raw. Edmund, still seething, tries to usher them away. "We'll handle this ourselves. He can keep that damned apartment. I have friends who can help." His bravado sounds hollow. Rosalind's legal team is already stripping away any illusions of his wealth. Eventually, they peel off toward a battered sedan parked at the far end of the lot. Iris and Marina climb in, slamming doors. Edmund lingers, shooting one last glare at Graham before driving off in a squeal of tires. Damon and Graham stand in silence, the courthouse at their back. Damon asks softly, "You okay?" Graham exhales, shoulders sagging. "I'm not sure, but it's almost done. They'll have to leave for good now." The legal resolution underscores the finality of everything. Graham spent years tethered to Iris and Marina, but the papers in his hand sever that bond in a brutal, definitive way. As much as it stings, he reminds himself that this was the path they chose when they lied and betrayed him. They leave the courthouse. In the car, Damon drives while Graham stares out the window. City life bustles around them, people hurrying on sidewalks, mothers pulling toddlers across crosswalks, business types rushing to late meetings. A pang hits Graham. These normal, everyday scenes highlight how abnormal his own situation has become. At a red light, Damon reaches into the glove compartment, handing Graham a small slip of paper with a phone number. "That's a friend of mine, a counselor. You might need someone to talk to after all this, a neutral party." Graham holds it, nodding. "Thanks," he murmurs, though he's not sure if he's ready for therapy or if he'll just bury his pain. They continue in silence until Damon drops him at his small rental apartment across town. "We'll get them out of your life for good," Damon promises. "Then you can figure out the rest." Watching Damon drive off, Graham stands on the sidewalk, the eviction documents clutched in one hand. The day's victory tastes bitter, overshadowed by the knowledge that even winning doesn't fix the heartbreak. He drags himself up the stairs to his unit, unlocking the door with a numb sense of detachment. Inside, the emptiness of the place echoes his own emotional void. The legal resolution is supposed to bring closure, but he feels no immediate relief, only a dull ache that might take years to fade. He sets the papers on the kitchen counter, sinks into a worn-out chair, and closes his eyes. Outside, a car horn blares, a dog barks, life goes on. Graham breathes deeply, reminding himself, it's nearly over, and you survived. Night settles over the silent street, the dim glow of lampposts flickering through Graham's living room window. He's perched on a second-hand couch, reading the eviction notice over and over until the words blur. Legally, everything is going as planned. Iris, Marina, and Edmund will soon be out of the apartment. Graham won't have to look over his shoulder anymore, waiting for their next demand or threat. Yet the finality brings an unexpected wave of sorrow. He'd imagined he would feel triumphant, vindicated in his revenge. Instead, the hush of this rental unit makes him feel unmoored. 30 years of marriage up in smoke. The thought circles back, leaving him with a hollow ache. His phone buzzes on the coffee table. Another unknown number. He's let it go to voicemail multiple times today. Possibly more frantic calls from Iris or Marina using different lines. Or maybe it's Edmund cursing him again. He doesn't answer. He can't muster the energy. A memory surfaces, a younger Iris smiling on their modest wedding day, holding his arm, glowing with the excitement of a future he thought they shared. He curses softly under his breath, burying his face in his hands. How did she transform from that hopeful partner into someone who schemed behind his back? Were there red flags I missed or just refused to see? He stands, crossing to the small kitchen. Grabbing a beer from the fridge, he pops the cap and leans against the counter. The bitterness on his tongue mirrors the bitterness in his soul. A few sips in, his phone buzzes again. This time, curiosity wins out. He swipes to answer without speaking. Static crackles, followed by a hesitant female voice. "Dad, I know you see this number." Marina. He presses the phone closer to his ear, pulse quickening. She exhales into the line. "Look, I'm not going to scream or demand anything. I don't know what to do. Mom's losing it, we have nowhere to live soon. Edmund's stuck in legal battles with that Rosalind woman. Her voice quavers. "I guess I wanted to say I'm sorry, if that's worth anything." Graham's throat tightens. He can practically feel her distress through the phone. For a long moment, he can't speak. Then he forces a controlled calm into his voice. "I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change much. You took her side. You ridiculed me with her. You demanded money you felt entitled to. Now you're sorry because it collapsed on you." Marina sniffs. I know. But I never asked for all these lies. I grew up believing you were my dad. Then I found out, so I was confused. Mom told me I should resent you for not being around, for always traveling. I believed her. She breaks off, voice hitching in a sob. A flicker of paternal instinct twists in Graham's chest. Despite everything, the protective impulse lingers. But the betrayal is too fresh, the wound too raw. "Marina," he starts softly, "I tried to be there for you as best I could, but..." She cuts him off. "I know. Mom twisted a lot of things. Edmund told me you were too boring, that you didn't deserve us. I bought into that because it was easier than admitting Mom was lying. I'm sorry. Really. I know it's too late for a big family reunion, but I had to say it." Silence hovers. Graham wrestles with conflicting urges, to comfort her, or to maintain the resolute distance he's established. Finally, he settles on a gentler tone. "I appreciate your honesty. But your mother is the one who orchestrated most of this, and you did choose to go along." Marina's tearful exhale is audible. I know. I guess I'll have to deal with that guilt. Anyway, we'll probably be gone soon. If you decide you ever want to talk, here's my number." The line goes quiet after that, leaving Graham clutching the phone in a trembling hand. Setting the phone aside, he downs the rest of the beer in a sharp gulp, wincing at the sting. The regret that creeps through him is like a slow poison, mingling with the satisfaction of knowing justice is served. It's a complex cocktail: loss, anger, sorrow, relief. Later he tries to sleep, but insomnia grips him. Scenes flicker behind his closed eyelids. Iris laughing with Edmund at the restaurant. Marina as a toddler squealing with glee at the park, the moment he found out the DNA results. Eventually he gets up and paces the small living room. The clock reads 2:14 a.m. in glowing numbers. He goes to the window, stares at the quiet street lit by a solitary street lamp. In the distance, a couple of stray cats dart across the road, chasing shadows. The hush contrasts with the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. In an attempt to find solace, he calls Damon knowing it's late, but Damon told him he could call any time. Surprisingly, Damon picks up on the second ring. "Graham, you good?" he asks, voice husky with sleep. Graham's words tumble out. "Marina called. She apologized. I don't know how to handle that. I feel messed up, Damon. I've wanted them to pay for what they did, and now I see them paying, and it hurts anyway." Damon pauses, presumably collecting his thoughts. "Yeah, that's normal," he says at last, sounding more alert. "Revenge might fix the external problem, stops them from abusing you. But it doesn't magically erase the emotional part. You're still dealing with betrayal." Graham rubs his eyes. "Yeah." They chat a few more minutes, Damon offering measured reassurance that these waves of guilt and sorrow are inevitable. "Just remember, you're not responsible for their situation. They made choices," Damon concludes. "You're just defending yourself." Once the call ends, Graham feels a slight easing of the knot in his chest. He collapses onto the couch, drifting in and out of a restless doze filled with half-formed dreams. Each time he surfaces, a pang of emptiness gnaws at him, 30 years of illusions torn away. By the time dawn breaks, pale light creeping over the horizon, he's decided something. He can't live in this city full of ghosts and memories any longer. The plan to join Damon overseas was more than just business or revenge. It's a chance to start over. He rummages for a pen and paper and writes a simple note. I choose to let go. Then he pins it to his fridge as a personal reminder. Today, he'll settle the last few ties to his old life, handing in final documents at his trading company, relinquishing a seat on a corporate board he once valued. A swirl of loneliness hovers, but also a sliver of hope. He'll close the door on the house he once shared with Iris, the illusions he once held dear. The train of betrayal has reached its final station, but the emotional fallout will take time to process. For now, he can only breathe and take the next step. One day he might find relief in that emptiness, forging a new identity free from the manipulations that defined his old marriage. But that day isn't here yet. The best he can do is move forward, piece by piece, until the sorrow loosens its grip. A brisk wind greets Graham as he exits the offices of his longtime trading company for the last time. He's just handed in his resignation letter, a neat paragraph explaining that he's moving on for personal reasons. The HR manager, looking stunned, tried to persuade him to stay. You're one of our strongest assets, Graham. But he insisted. He's determined to cut ties cleanly. His reflection glances back at him from the glass doors as they slide shut. With the weight of the corporate ID badge gone, he feels both liberated and oddly vulnerable. He spent years traveling the world for this company, forging deals, building a reputation. All of that is behind him now. The next chapter awaits abroad, in Damon's international venture, a project that once felt like a far-off dream, but now beckons with promise. A short taxi ride later, he arrives at the cramped storage unit he's been renting. Inside are dusty boxes of old family photos, items from past travels, and bits of furniture he once planned to use for a future vacation home that never materialized. He sorts through them rapidly, discarding more than he keeps. The pictures featuring Iris and Marina go into a separate pile. He can't decide whether to trash them or save them for some future reckoning. One photo stands out, a snapshot of him and Iris at a beach, arms around each other, broad smiles. He recalls how that day ended in a silly argument about car keys. Even then, the seeds of friction were present. Setting the photo aside, he exhales. Maybe one day he'll have the emotional bandwidth to reflect on those memories without bitterness, but not now. He arranges shipping for a handful of items he wants overseas, mainly personal keepsakes, and donates the rest. Sweating in the dusty warmth of the storage facility, Graham feels a new sense of clarity. Each item he discards is a weight lifted, each memory left behind a step toward self-forgiveness. That evening, he heads to the airport for the final stage of his departure. The terminals hum with travelers, rolling suitcases, flight announcements echo overhead. Graham keeps a small suitcase and a carry-on with him. Everything else he truly needs has already been shipped or sold. At the check-in counter, he obtains his one-way ticket to Damon's City, the cost covered by the funds he skillfully secured abroad. Sinking into a seat near his gate, he checks his phone. A flurry of missed calls from unknown numbers, likely Iris and Marina using borrowed phones. He's done entertaining drama. After a moment's hesitation, he turns the phone off entirely, slipping it into his jacket pocket. "Excuse me," comes a gentle voice. Graham looks up to see a middle-aged woman in a flight attendant's uniform, scanning the waiting area. "Are you Mr. Cole? We're pre-boarding soon." He offers a nod, collecting his things. The final step. Heart pounding, he stands and gazes across the busy terminal. So many journeys, so many stories. His own story is shifting from a bitter conclusion to an uncertain beginning. Walking down the jet bridge, he feels an unspoken finality. The overhead bins, the row of seats, the subtle hum of the plane's air system, these details strike him with a sense of surreal clarity. He's left behind the job that once defined him, the marriage that stifled him, and the illusions that haunted him. Minutes later, he's strapped into his seat by the window. Outside, airport workers hustle, fueling the aircraft, loading luggage. The cabin announcement crackles. Flight 473 to Damon City. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened. Graham closes his eyes, recalling Damon's invitation. We're expanding. I need someone with your language skills, your negotiation savvy. I can offer you a stake in the company. It felt like a pipe dream at the time, but now it's the lifeline. He embraces a complete overhaul of his existence. As the plane begins taxiing, he glances at the empty seat beside him. A fleeting pang of loneliness surfaces. He's truly alone for the first time in decades. But he reminds himself that being alone doesn't have to be a negative. It can be freedom, a chance for reinvention. The plane accelerates, engines roaring, pressing him back against the seat. Through the window, the runway rushes past, then falls away as they ascend. The city's lights become tiny sparks below, roads twisting like faint ribbons. He thinks of Iris, Marina, and even Edmund, how, at this very moment, they might be stumbling around, trying to salvage whatever remains of their shattered plans. Clouds envelop the plane, everything outside going white in a brief haze. He's leaving it all behind: the heartbreak, the lies, the illusions. Yet a tiny voice inside whispers that the emotional scars will follow him, no matter how far he travels. That might be true. But at least now, he controls his destiny. When the aircraft levels off, a flight attendant offers drinks. Graham requests a water, sipping it carefully. He stares at the condensation on the plastic cup, mind drifting over the events of the past months, the discovery of betrayal, the strategic moves, the final confrontation. Each recollection hits like a punch, but he steels himself. Eventually, he takes out a small notepad, something he used to do in simpler times, and jots down a single line. I am free. The pen's ink smudges slightly with the plane's slight turbulence, but the words remain clear. He leans back, letting the cabin's white noise lull him. Outside, the night sky stretches infinitely, stars twinkling above the clouds. For years, he soared across time zones for work, feeling disconnected from life. Now he's embarking on a flight that promises genuine change, a blank slate, far from the toxic swirl that once defined him. In the final moments before drifting into a doze, he thinks of the new city waiting, Damon's handshake, and the possibility of forging a different existence. He might still ache for what he lost. Heartbreak doesn't vanish overnight. But beneath that ache, a cautious optimism flickers. He's set off from the wreckage of betrayal, forging a path to a place where old wounds can heal and personal potential can flourish. That quiet sense of hope nestles in his chest as the plane continues its journey through the night sky, leaving the past forever behind. Sunlight streams through the airplane's small window as Graham Cole stirs awake. The seatbelt sign is clicked on, and a gentle announcement crackles overhead. We'll be landing shortly. Please return your seatbacks and trays to their upright positions. His stomach tightens with anticipation. He's about to set foot in a country he barely knows. Yet the promise of a clean slate beckons. He peers outside to see a sprawling urban landscape below glass skyscrapers interspersed with clusters of lower buildings, snaking highways clogged with buzzing scooters and cars. The pilot announces the local temperature, a humid warmth even at early morning. Exactly the opposite of the cold tension I left behind, Graham muses. As the plane descends, he tries to calm the swirl in his mind. He's left the heartbreak of betrayal behind, and here, with Damon Shaw's help, he aims to build something new. A rush of hot air greets him when the plane's doors open. The terminal is modern, filled with travelers weaving in every direction. Flashing digital signs in multiple languages confirm that he's far from home. Gripping his carry-on, he follows the crowd through immigration, offering polite smiles while fumbling with his passport and visa. Though he's an experienced traveler from his past career, this arrival feels different, no longer a routine business trip, but a genuine relocation. A broad grin spreads across Damon's face when he spots Graham in the arrivals hall. The younger man, sporting a sharp blazer and loafers, waves him over. "Welcome, buddy," Damon says, pulling him into a brief hug. The tension in Graham's chest loosens a notch. Amid the sea of unfamiliar faces, a friend's greeting offers relief. Outside, the sun hits hard. Palm trees sway in the breeze as Damon leads Graham to a waiting SUV. The driver, a local man named Madhu, greets them with a friendly nod and hoists Graham's suitcase into the trunk. The subtle smell of fried street food and exhaust wafts through the air. So many sensations at once. Graham slides into the back seat, nerves tingling. Jet-lagged, Damon asks, settling next to him. Graham shrugs, forcing a small smile. A bit, but also I don't know. It's excitement, I guess. Damon nods, understanding in his gaze. Things move fast here. You'll feel the difference from day one. He flicks through messages on his phone, then grins. I've arranged a temporary apartment near our office. You can stay there until we find you a place you really like. The city rushes past as Madhu navigates bustling streets, colorful signs in multiple scripts, street vendors selling skewers of marinated meat, tuk-tuks weaving through traffic. Graham can't help but stare, half in awe, half in mild culture shock. This environment is a stark contrast to the quiet suburbs he left behind. Eventually, they pull up to a sleek high-rise with tinted windows. Inside the lobby, the marble floors gleam under subdued lighting. Damon guides Graham to a private elevator that whisks them to an upper floor, opening into a compact but stylish unit, large windows, minimalist furnishings, a faint aroma of fresh paint. Graham sets his carry-on down, absorbing the reality of his new surroundings. I had the place cleaned up, Damon explains, wandering into the small living area. Stocked the fridge with basics: milk, eggs, some local staples. It's not huge, but comfortable enough. Graham offers an appreciative nod. This is perfect. I appreciate everything you've done, Damon. He hesitates, emotion tightening his throat. I'm truly starting over, and you're giving me that chance. Damon claps a hand on Graham's shoulder. I know. Look, let's not get sappy. You're here to work and rebuild, right? He flashes a teasing grin. First step, let me show you around the city, then we'll drop by the office. I want you to meet some of the team. They depart after Graham takes a quick shower, the cool water soothing the remnants of a long flight. Dressed in a light shirt and slacks necessitated by the region's humidity, he follows Damon through the energetic downtown. The streets hum with life, honking vehicles, chatter in a local language, the swirl of bright, vibrant clothing. Graham drinks it all in, an undercurrent of excitement fizzing in his chest. They stop for lunch at a roadside cafe Damon favors. The menu is partly in English, partly in the local script. Damon orders confidently, selecting spicy dishes and chilled drinks. Graham, less certain, nods at Damon's suggestions. Soon, plates appear: stir-fried noodles with fragrant herbs, tangy curries, fresh tropical fruits. Sweat beads on Graham's forehead at the first bite. It's hotter than he's used to, but Damon laughs and passes him a napkin. Told you I'd ease you in. Between mouthfuls, Graham can't resist glancing at the passers-by. Families jostle for seats, business folks chat animatedly, backpackers consult worn maps. It's chaotic, yet it feels alive in a way his old life had ceased to feel. The remainder of the day is a blur of orientation. They drop by Shaw Global Ventures, Damon's company, headquartered in a modern office tower. The glass doors slide open to reveal a stylish reception area, walls adorned with art that marries local culture with contemporary design. Damon introduces Graham to a handful of employees, a polite HR manager named Anya, a jovial finance director named Carlos, and a reserved admin assistant named Suri, who hands Graham a welcome packet. Amid the handshakes and pleasantries, Graham senses a genuine warmth quite unlike the cold corporate environment he once endured. Damon's staff respond eagerly to Damon's leadership style: open-door policy, big ideas, and bold expansions across Southeast Asia. We can use your multilingual skills, Damon points out, grinning as he leads Graham through a corridor. Negotiations with European and American clients will be smoother if you're on board. In a spacious corner office, Damon's workspace, they settle into plush chairs. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the cityscape sparkles beneath the afternoon sun. Damon outlines a broad vision, forging new partnerships, building a local distribution network, maybe even developing sustainable projects with rural communities. Graham listens intently, mind buzzing with the scope of possibilities. There's no mention of the heartbreak left behind, no stifling sense of dread. This is a place of progress, not regret. By early evening, jet lag tugs at Graham's body. Damon notices. You should rest up. We'll start in earnest tomorrow. I'll have Madhu drive you back. The day's momentum, though invigorating, drains Graham. Yet he leaves the office with a spark of hope, the first genuine surge of positivity he's felt in weeks. Back at the apartment, Graham stands by the window, gazing at the labyrinth of lights outside. Neon signs, the glow of endless windows in neighboring high-rises, headlights streaming along congested roads. He sips a bottle of water, marveling at how many lives converge here, each person chasing something: opportunity, adventure, or escape. He's part of that crowd now, forging a new chapter far removed from the betrayal that once defined him. Fatigue wins out. He settles onto the bed with crisp white sheets, drifting into a dreamless sleep. For the first time in a long while, he doesn't wake to nightmares about Iris, Marina, or Edmund. Instead, he sleeps deeply, lulled by the city's distant hum. In this foreign land, a quiet sense of possibility envelops him, an open door, rather than a trap. Morning light seeps through the curtains, rousing Graham from a surprisingly peaceful sleep. He blinks at the unfamiliar ceiling, momentarily disoriented, then remembers he's continents away from his old life. The realization sparks both relief and a twinge of anxiety. I truly left everything behind. After a quick shower, he rummages in his suitcase for a collared shirt and dress pants, eager to make a good impression on day one at Shaw Global Ventures. His reflection in the mirror reveals a man who looks older, etched with lines of recent stress. But there's also a hint of determination in his gaze, an undercurrent of renewed energy. Outside, Madhu is waiting with the SUV, greeting him with a friendly wave. The commute is shorter than Graham expects. Damon's office is mere blocks away, though the thick traffic extends the drive. During the ride, Graham can't help but observe local life passing by. A fruit vendor balancing baskets on a bicycle, a mother holding her child's hand while crossing the jam-packed street, bright signs advertising everything from electronics to herbal remedies. The city pulses with a restless beat that makes Graham feel oddly alive. At the office, Anya, the HR manager, takes him on a more detailed tour. She explains the hierarchy: Damon at the top as CEO, various department heads beneath him, plus an international liaison group that handles foreign partnerships. "We're still expanding," Anya mentions, leading him past a row of glass-walled conference rooms. "Damon believes we need a versatile team that can handle cross-cultural deals. That's where you come in." Graham nods thoughtfully. "I spent years in international sales. I'm used to bridging those gaps, hopefully." Anya offers a kind smile. "I read your background, very impressive. We're lucky to have you." Her sincerity disarms him. He's so accustomed to suspicion and tension that genuine warmth catches him off guard. They enter a mid-sized conference room, walls decorated with motivational posters in both English and the local language. Carlos, the finance director, sits at the long table, flipping through budgets on a tablet. He looks up and greets Graham with a broad grin. "Welcome to the chaos, man. We're just about to discuss next quarter's expansions. Hope you're ready to dive in." Graham feels a spark of excitement. "Absolutely. Let's do it." The meeting unfolds in an energetic flurry of data, strategy, and bold ideas. Damon presides at the head of the table, orchestrating a lively back and forth among the team. Unlike the stifling top-down approach Graham once endured, here everyone pitches in. A marketing lead suggests an innovative social media campaign. Carlos weighs the financial feasibility. Graham, though new, shares insights on negotiation tactics gleaned from his corporate past. At one point, Damon turns to Graham. "We need your perspective on dealing with a potential partner in Germany who wants to set up local distribution. Can you handle that call tomorrow? Your German is probably sharper than any of ours." Graham's chest tightens momentarily. He hasn't spoken German extensively in a while, but the memory of a youthful, ambitious version of himself resurfaces. "Sure," he replies, steadying his voice. "I can prepare a proposal and handle the initial call." By lunch, the group disperses, brimming with plans. Suri, the admin assistant, approaches Graham in the hallway, offering a stack of documents and a gentle smile. "Here's the background info on that German firm. Let me know if you need anything else." He thanks her, noticing how the staff treat him with an easy respect. It's refreshing to be valued without hidden agendas. The fear and anger that once consumed him feels a few steps further behind. In the afternoon, Damon suggests a quick break. They step outside to a small terrace on the building's 20th floor. The view is breathtaking. An endless expanse of skyscrapers, ribbons of traffic, and a murky river snaking through the metropolis. Damon leans against the railing. "You look happy," he says, watching Graham's expression. Graham exhales slowly. "I am, in a cautious way. I feel like I can contribute here. Something about building a new business in a new culture, it's exciting." Damon nods, resting a hand on Graham's shoulder. "You've got the skill set, and you're away from the toxic stuff. I can see the difference already." A wave of gratitude washes over Graham. He thinks of the times Damon extended an invitation, which Graham had always declined due to family obligations or job commitments. If only he'd listened sooner, but regret is overshadowed by the present sense of renewal. Later that day, Graham dives into the reading material about the German partnership, detailed background logs, potential synergy charts, plus notes about local legal intricacies. He sits in a quiet office nook, scanning documents with laser focus. It's been a while since he's felt so engaged in professional tasks, not simply going through the motions like he did back home. As evening approaches, Damon taps on Graham's door. "A few of us are grabbing dinner. You game?" Graham's first instinct is to refuse. He used to rush home after work, trying to appease Iris and keep the household from boiling over in conflict. Now there's no tense home waiting, no forced chores. "Yeah," he says at last. "I'd love to." They head to a small restaurant tucked down a side street. The neon sign flickers overhead, and the smell of sizzling dishes wafts out. A boisterous group from the office arrives: Anya, Carlos, Suri, plus a couple of interns. Everyone slides into a long table, ordering a spread of local specialties and ice-cold beverages. Conversation flows in a lively mix of English and the local tongue. They share anecdotes about adjusting to the city's quirks, the unpredictable rainy season, the chaotic driving, the unwavering warmth of the people. Graham leans back in his chair, absorbing the easy camaraderie. He's always been somewhat reserved, but tonight he finds himself laughing at silly office anecdotes, even offering a couple of his own from past overseas trips. Halfway through the meal, Suri points at him with a chopstick. "Is it weird leaving your home country behind?" Her tone is curious, not prying. Graham weighs his response. "It's definitely an adjustment," he admits carefully, mindful not to delve into personal heartbreak. "But I feel less confined, like I can define myself differently here." She nods, her expression empathetic. The group moves on to chat about weekend plans. Some mention exploring beaches outside the city. Others plan to see a big concert. Graham listens, a pang of longing fluttering in his chest. Could I build a life where personal connections exist without betrayal? For now, he remains content with friendships and professional respect. Romance and deeper bonds can wait. Returning to his apartment later, he flops onto the couch, exhausted but content. The day was a whirlwind of introductions, strategy sessions, new flavors, and glimpses of genuine camaraderie. In the quiet of his own thoughts, he traces the emotional difference. No panic or heartbreak overshadowing him, just a cautious optimism. The mental image of Iris's scornful face, Marina's mocking smile, or Edmund's smug posture has faded, replaced by the welcoming faces of Damon's team and the vibrant city outside. Before bed, he stands by the window, city lights twinkling like fireflies on the horizon. He thinks of the day's successes, connecting with colleagues, finding meaning in forging new business paths. I have a purpose again, he realizes. And though the scars of betrayal remain, he's discovering they don't have to dominate his every waking moment. Smiling faintly, he turns off the lights and crawls under the clean sheets. Another day awaits, full of possibility. As he drifts off, he marvels at how forging new bonds and challenges might lead him to rediscover himself, a self not defined by deception, but by growth. Gray clouds loom over the city when Graham wakes to distant thunder. The weather app warns of an afternoon storm common here, with the monsoon season rolling in. He closes the forecast, pushing aside a vague sense of unease. Storms can't be worse than what I've already endured, he tells himself wryly. At the office, the morning hums with productivity. Graham settles into a routine reviewing proposals, drafting negotiation points for the German call, and exchanging quick jokes with colleagues who pass his glass-walled cubicle. There's an undercurrent of excitement. The team is positioning Shaw Global Ventures for a major contract that could redefine their presence in Europe. Graham's role is vital, which fuels his sense of belonging. Yet, as noon approaches, his stomach twists in inexplicable anxiety. He can't pinpoint a reason. Over lunch in the building's cafeteria, an airy space with wide windows overlooking the skyline, he picks at a bowl of steaming noodles, appetite faltering. Suri, noticing his quietness, sits beside him. "Everything okay?" she asks, concern soft in her eyes. He forces a smile. "I'm fine. Probably just the weather messing with my head." She nods sympathetically and goes back to her meal, letting him have space. By mid-afternoon, the sky darkens. Rain sheets down the glass, the cityscape nearly vanishing behind streaks of water. Graham's mind wanders back to a conversation with Iris during a thunderstorm. Years ago, she had complained about the roaring thunder, demanding he fix the leaky window. The memory stings unexpectedly, forcing him to close his eyes. How many storms did we weather that I mistook for normal challenges? He tries to refocus on the present. The German client call is in an hour, and he needs to polish his slides, but the creeping shadows of the past distract him. A fleeting image of Marina's tearful face surfaces her phone call apologizing for the betrayal. He breathes steadily, reminding himself that life is behind me. I'm forging a new path. Time ticks away and the call commences. Graham dials in, greeting the German representatives in their native language. They respond with surprise, and immediate rapport forms when they realize he's fluent. The conversation unfolds smoothly. Strategies, timelines, potential expansions. Damon, who sits in to observe, gives Graham an approving nod. By the end, the German reps are enthusiastic, agreeing to a follow-up session next week to finalize details. When the call ends, the room erupts in applause from Damon and a few others who gathered to watch. Graham smiles, heat creeping up his neck. "Thank you," he murmurs, a flush of pride momentarily overshadowing the earlier anxiety. Damon claps him on the back. "Brilliant job, my friend. This is exactly why I wanted you here." The day's success buoys him through the late afternoon. Even the persistent downpour outside can't quell the sense of accomplishment. But as he's about to shut down his computer for the evening, a single email subject catches his eye. From Marina Cole. His heart thuds. She must have found my new company address. Hands trembling, he hovers the cursor over the message. Part of him wants to delete it unread, cling to the progress he's made in leaving that life behind. Another part urges him to see what she wrote. After a tense moment, he double-clicks. The email is short. "Dad, hope you're okay. We lost the apartment and ended up staying in a budget motel for a while. Everything's crazy. Mom's not herself. Edmund's in trouble with the law. Something about an outburst at a bank. I keep thinking about you. Sometimes I regret how I treated you. If you ever want to talk, Marina Graham exhales, a flood of mixed emotions pouring in. Guilt, pity, anger, longing. He can imagine her predicament, Iris spiraling, Edmund losing control. They're paying for their betrayal. But does that knowledge bring him peace? Or does it just reignite old wounds? He stares at the screen, torn between ignoring the email and replying with some measure of empathy. A swirl of memories assaults him, teaching Marina to ride a bike, cheering her on at a school play, then the harsh sneers she offered him in recent years. People can change, or maybe they only reach out when they need something. A knock on the doorframe startles him. Damon stands there, expression curious. "Hey, we're headed out for dinner if you want in. You good?" Graham forces a calm smile, quickly closing the email. "Yeah, I'll be right there." He logs off, deciding not to respond yet. He's not ready to reopen that wound, not with the precarious balance he's achieved here. Dinner is a subdued affair at a quiet Italian bistro. Rain patters on the roof, thunder occasionally rattling the windows. Sipping a glass of wine, Graham tries to banish the email from his mind. The conversation drifts around him. Anya jokes about corporate fiascos from her previous job. Carlos recounts a comedic story about losing important documents at an airport. Graham contributes politely, but the email's weight presses on him. After the meal, Damon pulls Graham aside. "You look distracted tonight. Anything up?" Graham debates how much to share, eventually opting for partial truth. I got a message from someone back home. It stirred old memories. Damon nods in understanding, not prying. We can talk if you need. Otherwise, I trust you'll handle it in your own time. Grateful for Damon's discretion, Graham thanks him and heads to his apartment through the drizzle. The city glistens with reflections of neon signs and puddles. Inside his place, he flicks on a single lamp and changes into more comfortable clothes. The email from Marina weighs on his mind, a reminder that the past can't be fully banished by distance. He sits on the couch, phone in hand, drafting possible replies, but each attempt sounds either too cold or too forgiving. Finally, he deletes all the drafts and sets the device aside. I'll decide tomorrow. For now, his new life can't revolve around the chaos he left behind. This city, these new colleagues, and his blossoming sense of self demand his focus. Lightning flashes outside, illuminating the living room for a heartbeat. In that stark brightness, he sees the reflection of a man forging a fresh path, scarred, uncertain, but not paralyzed by betrayal. The thunder that follows feels distant, like an echo of a storm that no longer belongs to him. He stands and draws the curtains, shutting out the night's turmoil. One day at a time, he reminds himself, heading to bed. The past can cast echoes, but he's determined not to let them drown out the present or overshadow the future. Morning arrives under a sky swept clean by last night's storm. Rays of sun gleam on damp streets. Graham strides into the office, coffee in hand, feeling the buzz of a new day. He has a full schedule, drafting proposals, a staff briefing with Damon, and follow-up calls for the German partnership. The purposeful swirl steadies him, reminding him why he came here in the first place. In the break room, he bumps into Carlos, who's rummaging in the fridge. "Morning, man. You look chipper." Graham smiles. "Just excited. We're doing a second video conference with that German team next week, right?" "Indeed. You're the star," Carlos jokes, offering a camaraderie that feels genuine. They chat briefly about budget allocations, then part ways. The normalcy of these interactions grounds Graham office banter, shared jokes, a sense of collective mission. Midday, Damon organizes a brief staff meeting, praising Graham's stellar performance and hinting at possible expansions. "If we land these deals, we might open a satellite branch in Europe. Graham here could head that project if he's up for it." The group applauds, eyes turning to Graham. His heart warms with both pride and humility. Head a project? The concept triggers an internal flutter, a leadership role far removed from the toxic environment he left. But first, he wants to fully acclimate to this city, to prove himself in day-to-day tasks. During a lunch break at a bustling food court, Graham chooses a spicy dish he wouldn't have dared try weeks ago. The flavors burst on his tongue, overwhelming yet thrilling. Suri, sharing the table, watches him fan his mouth. "Too hot?" He laughs through the burn. "I'll get used to it eventually." They talk about mundane things, traffic, local festivals, the upcoming company retreat Damon's planning. The conversation is comfortable, reminding him that forging new relationships is possible, even for someone scarred by betrayal. Later, in the quiet of his office nook, he lays out personal goals. Find a permanent home that isn't just a crash pad, develop local friendships or interests, maybe take some language lessons to better navigate daily life. The old Graham always had a family to rush back to, chores to handle, or marital tensions to diffuse. Now it's just me. He grapples with a sense of freedom tinged with loneliness, but decides it's better than living with constant suspicion and pain. As dusk approaches, he calls a local real estate agent recommended by Damon. A bright-voiced woman named Lena answers, promising to show him a few modest apartments tomorrow. "Some foreigners opt for condos in the city center," she explains. "Great amenities, close to everything. But if you want something quieter, there are options on the outskirts too." Graham can't help picturing a small, minimalist space, perhaps with a balcony overlooking the city or a tranquil river. A place that could truly be his, untainted by painful memories. "Let's check out both," he says. "I'm open." That evening, he returns to the empty apartment that Damon arranged for him. Instead of the heaviness that once greeted him in his old home, he finds a neutral silence, no expectations, no hostility. Pulling out a notepad, he sketches a rough plan. Apartment visits with Lena tomorrow, confirm next steps for the Germany deal, Consider new language classes. Staring at these goals, he feels a glimmer of optimism. The heartbreak from Iris, Marina, and Edmund might never vanish completely. Scars seldom do, but the sense of purpose he's discovering day by day acts like a balm. He flicks on some quiet music, an ambient playlist recommended by Carlos, and begins reading a local news website to familiarize himself with the city's daily issues, traffic expansions, a mayoral election, upcoming cultural festivals. The language is a challenge, but he picks out words he recognizes from his earlier travels. I can adapt, he tells himself, a determined spark lighting his eyes. Midway through an article about infrastructure, his phone buzzes with a text from Damon. Heard from the German team's CEO. They're thrilled with your approach. Keep it up. Graham smiles, typing a quick thanks. The validation from a boss who is also a friend is something he never experienced in his old corporate life, where successes often went unnoticed or overshadowed by personal drama at home. A wave of satisfaction and relief washes over him. He's forging a new identity, not the downtrodden husband overshadowed by betrayal, nor the complacent salesman going through repetitive motions. Here, he is recognized as valuable, a potential leader, someone with fresh ideas. The city's vibrant heartbeat matches the new pulse in his own life. Before bed, he changes into casual clothes and ventures out for a stroll, drawn by the mesmerizing glow of city lights. A few blocks away, he stumbles upon a night market stalls brimming with fruits, sizzling meats, handcrafted goods. The air crackles with negotiation banter in the local language. He tries some grilled skewers, nodding appreciatively at the vendor's grin. The bustle captivates him. Strangers moving past one another, each with their own stories. As he weaves through the stalls, a pang of memory surfaces. He once walked with Iris through a market in a different country, decades ago, laughter in their eyes. The memory stings less now, overshadowed by the immediate presence of new possibilities. He's alone in a foreign land, but not lonely in the same sense he's choosing solitude, not trapped in it. By the time he returns to his temporary apartment, the city hum has quieted slightly. Collapsing onto the couch, he breathes in the lingering night air. The path forward is still uncharted. He has no illusions that a new city guarantees an uncomplicated future. But each day here is a testament to the fact that he can stand on his own, free from the manipulations that once caged him. He closes his eyes, a faint smile playing at his lips. Tomorrow, he'll explore potential homes, dive deeper into work, maybe even learn some local phrases. It's all part of constructing a life that reflects who he truly is, a man who survived betrayal and found a second wind in an unfamiliar place. The betrayal, the revenge, the departure, they all culminated in this moment of rebuilding. And for the first time in years, that thought doesn't scare him. It excites him. A languid morning light filters through the tall windows of Shaw Global Ventures, illuminating Graham Cole's desk. He gazes at the scattered documents before him, contracts, project briefs, financial forecasts, and feels a twinge of pride. Several months have passed since he relocated here. The bustling city has become familiar, the streets no longer a blur of unknown signs and foreign dialects. Yet there's an undercurrent of tension in the office. A potential setback has emerged in the big German deal Graham helped broker. Word has come from the partner's legal team. Certain local regulations might stall shipments. If unaddressed, the entire contract could collapse. Damon's directive is clear. Find a solution. We need this partnership for our European expansion. Graham stretches, rolling his shoulders. He's come a long way from the heartbreak and revenge that once dictated his every move. Now he channels the same resourcefulness into problem-solving for the company that offered him a second chance. Sipping strong coffee, he flips open a laptop, sets up a video call with the German reps, and prepares to negotiate. Across the screen, the German project manager outlines the obstacles: government tariffs, shipping red tape. Graham leans forward, expression focused. In my old life, I might have cracked under this pressure, he muses. But the turbulence he endured escaping a toxic marriage, orchestrating his own cunning vengeance, taught him resilience. He proposes a phased rollout, partial shipments while the legal complexities get sorted, offering cost-sharing measures to ease the immediate burden. It's an improvised compromise, but it might buy everyone time. The manager listens intently, nodding in cautious agreement. Your approach is balanced, Mr. Cole, she says. voice echoing slightly through the video feed. "We'll bring it back to our directors. It might work." When the call ends, Graham exhales, heart pounding with adrenaline. He steps out to the corridor where Damon awaits with an expectant gaze. "Well?" Damon prompts. Graham smiles. "There's still hope. We'll have to flex, but we're not dead in the water." Damon grins, clapping him on the shoulder. "I knew you'd figure something out." Over the months, they've built a rapport of mutual trust, far deeper than the superficial alliances Graham once experienced in his old company. That evening, Graham meets a personal milestone. He's invited to a local business forum as a speaker, something unthinkable before. Standing at a podium before a mix of local entrepreneurs and expats, he shares insights on cross-cultural negotiations. Despite a flicker of stage fright, he pushes through, recalling how he once navigated life-or-death deals in his old job while carrying hidden emotional scars. A polite applause follows his talk. As he steps down, a cluster of attendees ask follow-up questions. One, a middle-aged local consultant, remarks, "Your perspective is refreshing. It's nice to see new faces bridging East and West." Graham thanks him, feeling the surge of validation that he's forging a genuine, respected path here. But not all is smooth. A few days later, outside communication rattles him. An unmarked envelope arrives at his apartment building, the doorman passing it to Graham with a shrug. Inside is a letter scrawled in hurried handwriting. Iris's voice leaps from the page, pleading for forgiveness or help. She claims her health is deteriorating, that Marina is floundering. "We don't have money. We can't keep living like this," the note says. "Can't you at least help your child?" Graham's chest tightens. He rereads the lines, memories of bitterness surging. Child. She means the daughter I raised who turned on me. For a moment, compassion stirs, but he's aware of the manipulative patterns that once entrapped him. His hand quivers as he sets the letter aside. The scars of betrayal haven't fully healed, but he's determined not to be pulled back into their chaos. He's moved on. So, he dismisses the plea, tearing the letter in half before discarding it. A pang of regret flickers, but he steels himself. They made their choices. I made mine. The rest of the evening, he wrestles with residual guilt. What if Iris truly is ill? What if Marina's beyond help? But then he remembers the cruelty, the mocking, the deception. If they want to rebuild, they can do so without my resources. He chooses not to respond, letting the silence be his final statement. His phone buzzes a text from Damon. "The German board loved your compromise. You're a hero." It's a bright spot, a confirmation of the growth he's nurturing. On impulse, Graham heads outside, strolling through the neon-lit streets. The city's vibrant hum calms him. He's forging new successes, forging a life defined by acceptance and progress, not by old wounds. Warm, late-afternoon sun spills across Damon Shaw's rooftop lounge. This exclusive spot, a vantage point high above the frenetic city, has become a meeting place for close associates. Tonight, Damon has invited a small circle from the company to unwind, share stories, and celebrate the near breakthrough with the German deal. Graham arrives, noticing the cozy arrangement of wicker chairs, potted plants, and a small bar area. Soft music plays. He inhales the balmy air, letting the tension of the day melt away. Damon beckons him over, handing him a drink. "You deserve this, partner," Damon says, smiling widely. In the months since Graham arrived, he and Damon have solidified an authentic friendship. Gone are the fleeting phone calls of yesteryear, overshadowed by Graham's marital strife. Now they share daily banter, mutual respect, and genuine camaraderie. Damon's trust in Graham's abilities opened doors, and Graham's unwavering work ethic has proven he's worth that trust. As the sun dips, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, Damon pulls Graham aside. "I've been thinking about a new project in another region," he begins, swirling the ice in his glass. "We'll need a strong leader there, someone who can handle negotiations without flinching." His gaze drifts meaningfully to Graham. "You've got the skill set, man." A flicker of excitement and apprehension lights in Graham's chest. "I appreciate it, but are you sure I'm the right fit?" The old insecurities resurface. He was once overshadowed by a wife who belittled him, a daughter who mocked him. Yet Damon's unwavering belief counters that negativity. "We'll figure it out together." Damon says, clinking glasses. I'm convinced you can handle it. We'll talk more after the German deal finalizes. Throughout the evening, colleagues rotate through the lounge, telling jokes, swapping business war stories. Graham drifts among them, feeling the subtle respect they grant him, no longer just the foreigner Damon brought in, but a valued part of the team. At one point, Carlos, the finance director, teases Graham about the local language. I heard you practicing in the break room. You keep mixing up the words for profit and pineapple. Laughter erupts. Graham chuckles along, unoffended. He's come to appreciate their light-hearted ribbing. It's a sign he's truly integrated. Later, the crowd thins, leaving Graham, Damon, and a couple of close colleagues by the railing. The city below sparkles like a reflection of the starry sky. Damon turns reflective, swirling the last of his drink. You know, he says quietly, I've never asked for details, but I sense you went through a lot before coming here. Graham's throat constricts. He's shared fragments with Damon enough to explain the betrayal and divorce, but never the full emotional storm. Now, under the hush of night, he finds himself opening up a bit more, describing how Iris manipulated him, how Edmund fathered Marina, how everything unraveled. He chooses his words carefully, not wanting to wallow in old pain, but acknowledging it shaped who he's become. Damon listens intently, his expression somber. Man, I knew it was bad, but... He exhales. I'm sorry you went through that. You must have felt so alone. A wave of gratitude washes over Graham. I did. But revenge gave me a sense of justice. And after that, I realized I needed a real escape. That's where you came in. Damon sets a reassuring hand on Graham's shoulder. I'm proud you found the courage to break free. You're building something incredible here. They lapse into a comfortable silence. The warmth of acceptance and true friendship envelops Graham. No longer does he feel the weight of hidden secrets or looming betrayals. In Damon, Carlos, and the rest of the team, he's discovered a supportive network that stands in stark contrast to the deceitful environment he left behind. As the night winds down, Graham helps Damon gather empty glasses and plates. A new perspective settles over him, a shift in how he defines family or care. Blood ties can fail, but loyalty and genuine respect can arise in unexpected places. He's found a form of kinship within this community, and it feels healthier, more sincere. At home, he ruminates on Damon's potential new project. The idea of leading a team in a foreign region is daunting but thrilling. I've navigated far worse storms, he muses, recalling how he once orchestrated an entire revenge plan while simultaneously juggling corporate duties. He can handle this, provided he stays true to his new ethos of honesty, collaboration, and self-respect. Before bed, he scrolls through a set of photos from the rooftop gathering. Someone snapped a few group shots. In them, he sees himself laughing openly, engaged in conversation, no longer the tense figure overshadowed by a toxic home life. A faint smile touches his lips. He's forging an identity built on genuine connections rather than forced obligations or manipulative demands. The next few weeks swirl with activity. Graham finalizes the German negotiations, impressing the partners' board with his calm adaptability. Damon quietly hints that an official promotion may be imminent, a testament to Graham's growing influence within Shaw Global Ventures. One evening, after a productive day, Graham decides to explore a local art gallery that Carlos recommended. The gallery, tucked down a narrow lane, boasts eclectic paintings and sculptures from emerging regional artists. Soft jazz floats through the air as visitors wander quietly, sipping complimentary tea. Graham moves from one vibrant canvas to another, immersing himself in colors and textures that reflect the city's intense energy. As he contemplates a piece portraying swirling urban chaos, a gentle voice beside him speaks up. This artist captures motion so beautifully, don't you think? He turns to see a woman in her early 40s, wearing simple yet elegant attire. Her name, as he learns shortly, is Evelyn Morris, an expat who works for a local nonprofit. They share polite smiles, discussing the painting's abstract depiction of life's turbulence. Something about her measured, thoughtful observations intrigues him. They drift together to the next artwork, continuing to chat. Evelyn's been in the country nearly as long as Damon, but found her calling in community development. She speaks passionately about helping underprivileged neighborhoods, bridging cultural gaps. Graham, sharing bits of his own journey, carefully omits the raw details of betrayal but conveys that he arrived seeking a fresh start. A small laugh escapes her. Plenty of us here are reinventing ourselves. This city thrives on second chances. He nods, a flicker of warmth in his chest. The conversation flows naturally, free of judgment or hidden agendas. They end up exchanging contact information, promising to meet for coffee or volunteer at a local event. In the following days, they text sporadically, discussing city highlights or exchanging articles about community-driven projects. Graham treads cautiously, aware his past has left him wary of intimacy. Yet something about Evelyn's gentle sincerity reassures him. She never pries, never overshares, just fosters a sense of mutual curiosity. Eventually, they meet for dinner at a quiet riverside cafe. The setting is serene, lanterns strung overhead, water shimmering with reflections of distant city lights. They talk about everything from cultural faux pas to favorite comfort foods, from Damon's unstoppable ambition to Evelyn's dream of opening a small school for displaced children. At one point, Evelyn gently says, "I sense you've carried heavy burdens. I won't push, but if you ever want to talk, I'm a decent listener." Her gaze is sincere, no hint of pity. Graham's heart clenches. He hesitates, then offers a careful admission about his divorce, about how it ended in betrayal. He doesn't detail the revenge or the DNA revelations, it's too soon. But he acknowledges it left scars. Her expression softens in empathy. "I can't imagine how hard that must have been," she says softly, reaching across the table to give his hand a light squeeze. A spark flickers between them, not a blazing inferno like in naive teenage romance, but a gentle, comforting warmth that feels safe. He's not ready to leap into something serious, but the possibility of exploring a deeper connection beckons. Her calm presence stands in contrast to the chaotic relationships he once knew. When they part ways, Evelyn lingers with a smile. "Let's do this again sometime. No pressure. Just I enjoy talking with you." Graham nods, swallowing a subtle surge of emotions. "I do too," he admits. As she walks away, he exhales, aware that this fragile hope is something he dared not believe in months ago. A new love might be possible, albeit at a measured pace. A brilliant sunrise casts long shadows across Damon's private conference room. The air crackles with excitement. The big moment has arrived. Damon stands at the head of the table, flanked by senior team members, with Graham seated to his right. A laptop at the center shows the final video conference link with the German board. Graham smooths his tie, adrenaline coursing. Today, they'll sign the official agreement that cements the partnership a major success for Shaw Global Ventures. As the call connects, formalities exchanged, the digital document is displayed for both parties to virtually endorse. With a flourish of an e-signature, the deal is sealed. Applause erupts in the room, some staff hugging or giving high fives. Damon beams at Graham. "You did it!" Graham basks in the triumphant mood. The memory of once being overshadowed and belittled in his marriage surges forth how far he's come. He's no longer the boring wallet or the clueless husband. He's a respected strategist in a thriving company, forging genuine friendships and possibly something more with Evelyn. The celebration extends into late afternoon, culminating in a modest ceremony in the lobby. Champagne flutes clink, and group photos commemorate the day. Eventually, Graham slips away to Damon's office, seeking a quieter corner to process. Damon finds him gazing out the window at the city. "You okay?" Graham turns, a thoughtful smile on his face. "More than okay. Grateful, relieved." A pause. "This means a lot. Thank you for trusting me enough to bring me here." Damon shrugs playfully. "You earned it. And speaking of trust..." He hesitates, then hands Graham an envelope. Inside is a formal offer letter. Vice President of International Partnerships. Graham's jaw drops, breath catching in his throat. "You want me in a VP role?" he asks, voice thick with emotion. Damon nods. "You've proven yourself. We'll handle the details, but I want you spearheading expansions beyond Germany, maybe Spain, the Netherlands. You can build a real team under you, shape the department as you see fit." A swirl of disbelief and pride saturates Graham's heart. This is the apex of the professional journey he never imagined, back when he was drowning in marital deception. He pictures the younger version of himself, overshadowed by Iris's demands, never daring to dream this big. Now he's forging an identity on his own terms. That evening, Graham makes his way to a tranquil riverside vantage point. No loud celebrations, just a personal moment. He finds a quiet bench, the water reflecting the city lights in shifting ribbons of color. The warmth of the day lingers in the air, laced with a gentle breeze. Sitting down, he withdraws his phone. A momentary urge arises to see if he has new messages from Iris, Marina, or anyone from his old life. But he resists. He's learned that closure doesn't require reopening old wounds. Instead, he taps out a text to Evelyn, inviting her to join him for dinner sometime next week. Then he sets the phone aside, letting the hush of the river soothe him. In his mind, he sees the entire arc of his life over the past few years. From naive husband to wounded husband, from cunning avenger to cautious expat building a new existence. The emotional scars remain, but they no longer define him. He's discovered resilience, forging relationships that reflect respect, honesty, and growth. The city skyline stands as a testament to renewal. Towering buildings once unknown to him are now integral to his daily routine. He can hardly believe the metamorphosis, from a man trapped in betrayal to a man looking toward an open horizon. A slow smile curves his lips as he envisions tomorrow, leading negotiations, traveling to new regions, maybe forging deeper connections with Evelyn, forging even deeper friendships with Damon's team. There's no guarantee of perfect happiness, but he's equipped with confidence and self-worth, a vast improvement over the broken illusions he once carried. He rises from the bench, inhaling the night air. Staring at the water's reflective surface, he offers a silent vow to himself, to continue growing, to remain open to love and possibility, and to never again let deceit define his life. The betrayal that once consumed him has found its bitter end. The revenge that gave him space to breathe is complete. Now the future glistens with potential, shaped by his own choices rather than anyone else's manipulations. With that thought, he walks away from the riverside, each step resonating with quiet resolve. He's a different man in a different world, standing on the threshold of a bright horizon, free from the shadows of old heartbreak.